Loud. Yeah. Recording going. Make sure that's working. Yeah, recording going. Fantastic. Again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hiding, Lying, Stealing, and Defiance in 30 Days Less. With me, your trusted parenting advisor and faithful guide and servant on the journey to healing. What's my name? Big Papa Bryan Post. And some of you do not know who Big Papa Bryan Post is. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that. You'll know who this guy is that's trying to encourage you and inspire you and lead you down this journey of reclaiming your home and your family and your happiness. It's so important. So we'll get into that in just a minute. So let me ask you guys a question. Who's ready to end lying in 30 days or less? Who's ready to end lying in 30 days or less? So we sent out a little homework assignment. I hope you got it. I just had you being a little investigator, observing if that's the behavior you're going to focus on, because I really want you to get focused on a behavior. I don't want you to try to do everything. Don't try to do too much. That's one of the challenges we have as parents. Who's ready to end stealing in 30 days or less? Let me ask you that question. Who's ready to end stealing in 30 days or less? Is that your behavior challenge? Is that the behavior you're going to focus on? Remember, we want to get laser focused. How about who's ready to end defiance in 30 days or less? All right, well, welcome everyone, because we're going to get into dealing with these behaviors. We're going to get into understanding them. That's really what the first part of our whole presentation is really dealing with, is just understanding. Do you ever feel like you just want to pull your hair out, or your child is losing it and you just like don't know what else to do? Or at the end of the day, you're just like, what the hell is really going on around here? Well, I'm here to tell you that we're going to try to change all of those things. Have you guys tried bribery? Is that something you've tried in the past? Have you tried, let's see, what else have you tried? Maybe you've tried points and rewards. Have you tried timeout? Yelling, spanking? Everyone's like shaking your head, right? Medication, grounding, and how about threats, ignoring, counseling, consequences, 1, 2, 3 magic, removal of privileges, isolation? Like, aren't these the most common things that we do? Aren't these the things that we try over and over and over, year after year and year after year, and just kind of drive us a little bit insane? See, if you're like most parents I've worked with, you've tried it all according to what you know and what you've learned and what you've been taught and what others have instructed you to do. And like most parents here, you're probably tired. I get that. You're stressed out, you're angry, overwhelmed, and scared. Did you know that you're actually scared? I mean, most parents don't even realize they are, even though fear is one of the single biggest causes for parent-child conflict. Well, what am I afraid of, Bryan? Well, I don't feel afraid. See, a lot of times we don't correlate our internal struggle and our states with fear, and this is very important. I feel angry or helpless sometimes, but not afraid, right? Wouldn't that feel accurate? You feel angry and helpless sometimes, but not afraid? Well, think about this for just a moment. Do you ever worry if your child's going to end up in jail, in handcuffs? Do you ever worry if something bad's going to happen? They're going to be killed, suicide or something like that. They're going to be reckless and something terrible is going to happen to them. You ever worry if they're going to drink alcohol and get in a bad situation with others, or smoke dope? I mean, it's so common these days. You ever worry about your children doing drugs, if that's a gateway drug to some other drug? Although I'm not really a proponent of that belief. But do you feel and do you worry that your kids are going to do drugs? Or your young girls, your young daughters are going to end up being pregnant? Well, that's fear. See, a lot of times the things, we don't correlate our fears with our worries with our fears. If you're worrying, you're in a place of fear. You're in a place of stress, and that's really important. Well, my name is Bryan Post. I know some of you don't know who I am. Some of you do. Some of you have been following me for a long time. I've been working with out-of-control children for more than 20 years. I'm 45 years old. For more than 20 years, and I've seen the gamut, the lying, the stealing, the defiance, attempts to maim and kill. I've written and co-written 9 books. 3 have been bestsellers: Spirit of Love, Young, Consequences, Logic, and Control, and The Great Behavior Breakdown. I've worked with families from around the world. I know we have people from around the world joining us this morning, and I'm thankful for that, because it's not morning for you guys. It's some, if you're in Australia, it's Sunday morning. If you're in the UK, it's Saturday evening. So thank you for making the time to come and join us and participate. I've operated group homes for violent adolescents, and I've even started a school for these children. I've also produced more than 25 DVD and audio programs. I've lectured in the subject of out-of-control children for more than 15 years. I guess you can say I've pretty much seen it all when it comes to out-of-control children and desperate parents. But there's something else. I was just like your child. This is very important. This is what sets Bryan Post apart from everyone else that you're going to deal with. Not only was I once like your child, but I'll tell you about it. I, as an adopted child and then as a teen, some of my behaviors, quite frankly, were out of control. I lied, I stole, I cheated, got in fights, drank alcohol, killed animals, and acted out sexually. And there's simply nothing your child has done that I haven't already done, or at the very least seen. And that's the win for you and I today, is because we're going to have an inside perspective on what's going on with your children. I'm going to give you that inside perspective of your child. And then, to top it all off, I'm also a father. So I know what you go through as a parent as well, some of the challenges, some of the struggles that you're facing. And just to show you my family, this is my oldest daughter, Michaela. Michaela's 22 years old now. She's actually a social worker for child welfare in Oklahoma City. I'm extremely proud of her. She grew up with this work. We basically Christy and I started the Post Institute when Michaela was 4 years old. So it's not surprising that she grew up to be a social worker. Here's my 2 girls when they were younger. Here's my 15-year-old. This is Christy and I's daughter, Marley. And this is a funny little picture. Marley likes to change her hair color a lot. And so one day I bought her this happy birthday ice cream, and it was blue. When I came home, I was like, oh my gosh, Marley, the ice cream matches your hair. So that was that little picture there. And this is our adopted son, Kevin. Kevin's 24. We adopted Kevin when he came to our group home. He arrived to the U.S. from Honduras, and was on the streets, and then was picked up by Catholic Charities, came to our group home that we had in Virginia Beach when he was 15. Long story. Kevin didn't even talk when he first came to our home, but we ran our group home for a while, several years, and then when we got ready to come back to Oklahoma, Kevin didn't have a place to go. He was 18. He was about to be aging out of the system. So we went ahead and brought him back with us, and he's been our son ever since. And then there's my nephew, Elijah. My mother started raising my nephew when he was 2 years old, so he is still a significant part of my life. And then there's my 2 moms. My mom on the left in the white with me is mom who raised me. She's the one I refer to as mom. I love her. She's taken good care of me, always been consistent, always been predictable. And then my mother over here on the right, I want to share with you guys, is my biological mother. My biological mother and I were reunited when I was 37. And so it's been a real pleasure and joy getting to know her and getting to know some of the siblings. So my story goes way back, and it's woven with a lot of different experiences. The parenting methods you're about to learn are based on 20 years of my in-trenches experiences with some of the most challenging children and stressed out families on the planet. Over the years, we have created one of the fastest growing networks of parents and professionals committed to a love-based model of care in the world, serving thousands of members in more than 40 countries. May I ask you a question? Are you ready to revolutionize your home and your child? You can say yes to that. That's awesome. Does a peaceful home sound good to you? Would a better relationship with your child feel good? Let's get started. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to start seeing through a different lens. Now, we're focused on these specific behaviors. And I want you to start seeing that behavior differently. So we're going to change your paradigm, and that's what seeing through a different lens is all about. I used to want to find these sunglasses and put a little hologram of a baby on the inside so that when you put the sunglasses on, you'd see the baby within the person. What's important about that is you've got to be able to see underneath the behavior. You've got to be able to see through the behavior. And this is the first part of our talk, is helping you understand. I got to get you to shift your understanding of the behaviors you've been dealing with. That's what's going to make all the difference. So the very first question you got to ask yourself is, why does my child misbehave? Why does my child misbehave? That's the secret insight that you need. It's the secret understanding. And this is how you know you don't know the secret yet. You don't know the secret because you continue to struggle with those same behaviors over and over and over and over and over again. So I want to share with you the secret, and I really want you to focus and to really think about what it is that I'm saying, because even though we're just here for a short period of time with one another, we can transform that behavior and many more starting this morning. I know this 100%, and I say in 30 days or less, you could actually start transforming that today. Some of you will start transforming that today. And so I want to just really encourage you now, get focused in. When we were getting started, I heard some people had some background stuff going on. Of course, it's Saturday morning. It can be really busy. But try to get yourself in a quiet place so you can really dial in and tune in. And Esther Hicks calls it tapped in, turned on, and tuned in. So let's get tapped on, turned on, and tuned in, and let's really get to looking at this information. So there's some important areas of the brain when it comes to behaviors and stress and ultimately healing. And so this is the first thing you have to think about. When children are acting out, it's because they are stressed out. Write that down. An acting out child is a stressed out child. This is so important. So much of what we do for changing the way we think is about repetition. Bruce Perry, I reference him all the time. He's a fantastic mentor and author and just a dynamic person who studied children and trauma for years now. He says that when we stress, we revert to our developmental zone of comfort. So when we stress out, when we act out, we stress out. When we stress out, we regress. So when you stress, you regress. What's important about this is all of that comes from one important structure of the brain called the amygdala. Your amygdala is a part of your fight, flight, or freeze structure in your brain. It's the part of your brain responsible for releasing cortisol. Now, I provided you all with some key terms or a key term list because I want to be able to hammer in on this stuff, but I'm not going to spend a great deal of time. I want to give you an overview of it. You got your key terms. You get this as a replay, so you'll be able to listen to it again and again and again. But I want you to be able to have an idea of what it is you're dealing with. When you're dealing with the behaviors we're talking about today, then your first thing you're focusing on and looking at is the amygdala, because the amygdala releases cortisol. The reason lying happens, the reason defiance happens, the reason stealing happens, the very first reason any of those behaviors occur is because your child's amygdala gets turned on. And as soon as your child's amygdala gets turned on, they're releasing cortisol. And what that means is they are stressed. Okay, first thing. That's the first thing you have to see. You have to throw out, my child is stealing because he's selfish and he's controlling and he doesn't care about anyone else. You got to throw that thought out. You got to throw out the thought that my child is defiant because he's disrespectful and he's controlling and he's just not going to listen to me. You got to toss that out, right? That is a belief state that has been completely unhelpful to you up to this point. My child is lying to me just because he likes to manipulate, just because he likes to control, just because he's a bad kid, just because he's a rotten apple, he's a bad seed. You got to throw it out. That belief state, which comes with an energy, has been completely unhelpful to you up until this point. No more are we going to utilize and allow that belief pattern, that belief state. Now, let me tell you something. That comes from years of programming, generations of programming that say children misbehave because they are willfully disobedient. Children misbehave because they are manipulative and selfish by nature. That's generations of negative conditioning, which you are experiencing right now is doing you literally no good at all. It has done nothing more than create more stress and more fear in your home. We're going to break that pattern right now. We're going to stop that right now. So your amygdala, anytime you're dealing with a severe behavior, your child's amygdala is turned on. What's important about that is that as soon as your child's amygdala is turned on, your amygdala gets turned on too. Those two structures in your brain communicate with vibrations, through vibrations. The amygdala is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. The amygdala sits right on top of the brainstem. This is very important. It's like point number 2 or number 3, and I probably already dropped 5 on you. Point number 2, the amygdala sits right on top of the brainstem, and the brainstem stores all memory, including trauma. Your brainstem is one of the first levels of your brain to develop. So all of your personality traits are stored within the brainstem. So anytime you get stressed, your brainstem turns on. Your personality comes out. And all stress is not bad stress, right? So there's good stress. There's just a day-to-day living stress. There's eustress, there's stress of life, and there's distress. So all stress is not bad stress, but any stress activates the brainstem, which turns on your personality traits, but it's the higher levels of stress that then stir up the trauma. Your trauma is stored at your level of your brainstem. Your child's trauma, I'm going to take my flannel off. Guys, I am starting to heat up around here. Things are starting to get warm. Big Papas are starting to lay it down. Let me get this thing off of here. If we were live and in person, I would woo, and throw it out to the audience. But since we're not doing all that this morning, I'll just toss it over on the floor. So your child's trauma, and your child does have trauma if you're not aware of that yet, there is some major stressor going on, lurking around. That's why these behaviors become repetitive in nature, because there's some major stressor. It may not be a serious trauma, but for most of you are familiar with the Post-Institute. You have adopted children, you have foster children, you know that your children have experienced trauma. So there's something down there in that brainstem that continues to get stirred up and continues to activate your child. Well, this is a very important dynamic, because the amygdala turns on, child gets stressed, brainstem gets activated, trauma gets activated. Think about that for a moment. Child gets stressed, brainstem gets activated, trauma gets activated. The amygdala releases cortisol, which passes the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, goes to the hippocampus. Well, the responsibility of the hippocampus is to think clearly. Point number 3. In times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. Remember this. And this is so much of what we're going to talk about in this presentation. There's going to be some repetition to it. Bruce Perry says that in order to change the brain, you have to have positive repetition of environments and relationships. So you have to continually create repetition, because repetition is what reconditions your brain. I call it planting little love weed seeds. So you take a love weed seed and you plant it in your brain, and then you got to water it. Well, the repetition is the watering it. That's how it grows. And so pretty soon it becomes a pathway in your brain, and it just happens automatically. So that's where my brain is when it comes to this information now. I've planted so many love weed seeds in my brain and watered them with so much repetition of learning, so much repetition of reading, so much repetition of going to conferences and learning from gurus and experiencing and questioning and then reading more and learning more. All my little love weed seeds just sprout all over my brain, and it carries all this information. So you got to have the repetition. So I'm going to keep giving you the repetition all throughout the presentation because I want to layer it on. It's so important. So the point number 3 I mentioned, in times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted. I can't tell you how important this is. I cannot tell you how important this is. In times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. In times of stress, our thinking becomes confused. Are you writing this down? If you're not writing this down, that's already telling you that you're in a place of stress. You know why? Because you're thinking you're going to remember, and you're not. You got to write it down. You're probably even thinking you're going to come back and listen to this presentation again, which I want you to. I actually want to encourage you all to listen to it 3 to 5 times. That's how many times I'd like for you to listen to it. I'd like you to listen to it 3 to 5 times. So whether it's watching it, the video presentation, or whether it's listening to the audio, 3 to 5 times is what you need to start to really get you to start thinking about it, okay? In times of stress, our thinking processes become confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. Why is that important? Because when your child's amygdala is activated, when your child lies, when your child is defiant, when your child steals, whatever the behavior may be, I've just limited us to those 3, but it's any behavior. It's any behavior. And I'm going to give you the model to understand any and all behaviors, but I want you to focus on your 1. That's really what I want you to do. I want you to focus on your 1 because I'm going to show you how probably within about a week or 2, it's gone. At the very least, it's reduced by 50%. And after years of trying everything else you've been trying. So a couple weeks, 50% at the very minimum, if not gone. So when your child is misbehaving, their amygdala is activated. When their amygdala is activated, they're pouring out cortisol, and their brainstem is activated, which means their trauma is stirred up. So now their short-term memory is confused and distorted, so they're not thinking clearly anymore. So you may have been mom or you may have been dad just 5 minutes ago, but now you are a potential perpetrator. Now you are a person they cannot trust. Now you are an unsafe figure. You're an unpredictable figure. And remember, it has nothing to do with you. It's all about the brainstem. What's activated in the brainstem? What's stirred up in the brainstem? And now, because of what's happening with cortisol and the amygdala, they can't think clearly, and their short-term memory is suppressed. So now they can't remember. So I can't remember who you were 5 minutes ago. Sometimes I can't remember what was even going on 5 minutes ago in that state of stress. Right? So now I'm activated. So now I'm misbehaving because I am stressed out, and I have all these negative memory imprints getting stirred up. So now I'm on heightened alert, right? And so if you have the kind of child who is prone towards hyperarousal, then they're more hypervigilant. You could have the kind of child who's more prone to hypoarousal, and they're shutting down. You know this child. Misbehaving, but then they start shutting down. They start shutting down, they start withdrawing, they start isolating, they start getting depressed, right? That's hypoarousal. So they go from hyper to hypoarousal. So the cortisol is flooding the brain. Child's misbehaving, cortisol is flooding the brain, short-term memory is suppressed, confused and distorted thinking. Everything's going messy in here. It's all going a little bit haywire. I need you to see this. I need you to see this. Because you've been looking at it differently, and I need you to see it different. I need you to see it from a different paradigm, a different lens. What's going on in this state of your child's brain? 2 very important things. 1, they have no oxytocin response that is occurring. The oxytocin response is the love hormone. It's the anti-stress hormone in their brain. They're stressed and they've got conditions. So their amygdala, their cortisol is releasing. There's no oxytocin going on. Oxytocin has to happen. We're going to hit them with that in just a moment. But here's the other thing that's going on. Their amygdala starts signaling your amygdala. It's no different than when an infant cries and the parent is alerted, and then the parent goes to care for the baby. It's the same thing with your kids. At any age, when they start misbehaving, they are signaling your amygdala. They start to alarm your amygdala. And guess what happens when your amygdala starts to get alarmed? It starts to go from being signaled to alarmed to threatened. Right? So the behavior sets in. The child is signaling your alarm. They're signaling you. They're signaling you. Then they are alarming you, and now they are making you feel threatened. That's what happens when we see behavior. So there's a dynamic approach to this that I have to get you to get. I have to get you to see this. I call it dynamic because it's interchangeable. Every time your child lies, you get stressed out. Every time your child steals, you get stressed out. Every time your child is defiant, you get stressed out. And guess what I have to be able to help you do? I have to be able to help you dial that stress signal down. That's what I've got to help you do. Because your child is pumping out cortisol, overwhelming their brain, not thinking clearly, short-term memory suppressed. It's screwing up all their social and emotional functioning. It's making you stressed out. Right? And then guess what? There's no oxytocin. Oxytocin is a learned response in the brain. Your child relies on you to teach them an oxytocin response. When your child has gone outside of their window of tolerance and they can't control their own stress, i.e. they are acting out, they are misbehaving, then what they are demonstrating to you is they do not have sufficient oxytocin to calm themselves down, and they are relying on you to be able to do that. They're relying on you. And so when they're relying on you to be able to do that, then they're not going to be able to do it on their own. And if you're stressed out, then you're unable to help them with it. You're unable to help them with it. Does that make sense? When your amygdala reaches that state of elevation, you're not helping them turn on their oxytocin response because your oxytocin response isn't turned on. This is really important. And if your oxytocin response isn't turned on, you can't help them calm down. They're essentially having to calm down on themselves. They're essentially having to regulate on themselves. That's not good. They need you for effective regulation. Your child relies on you. And so that's why I'm always talking about breathing so much. I'm always talking about breathing because we have to be able to control our breathing so that we can control our stress response, we as parents. Because then we are becoming effective teachers for our children. Without saying a word, the moment your child is acting out and you start taking deep breaths, you are actually teaching their brain how to calm down. The moment you do that, you're actually teaching their brain how to calm down. In the midst of their negative behavior, when their cortisol is pumping in, when their fight, flight, or freeze is activated, when their trauma is getting all stirred up, when their short-term memory is suppressed and they're not thinking clearly, the moment you start to breathe, just breathe. You are now teaching, you're now putting your brain in a state that can teach their brain. Is that not powerful? That's powerful stuff. And we forget that all the time. You know why we forget it? Because the first thing we do when we become stressed is we stop breathing. When we stop breathing, we increase our stress response. Right? And this is so very important. When we stop breathing, we increase our stress response. And when our stress response is increasing, we can't help regulate our children. We can't help calm their brain down. And when we can't help calm their brain down, we can't do anything for them. We can't help them. We can't support them. We can't understand them. But one thing I really want to specify here is we're looking at the brain, and we're going to get more into the areas of the brain as we flow through the presentation. One thing I want to be clear about is that when our brains, oh my gosh, some of this stuff, when I start to say it, it just floods me. It just floods me because it's so important. And I'm not feeling everyone yet. Right? So I want to feel you. I want to feel you through this presentation. I want to feel that you're getting it. And so there will be times when I just have to slow down because I get so overwhelmed with the power of what it is that I'm telling you and the importance of it. It's like if I can't get you to see this, I can't get you to see anything. So I got to be able to get you to see this. When we see misbehaviors, when we see acting out, our amygdala sees a threat. I'm going to stop the share for just a moment. Okay. When we see misbehavior, our amygdala, your amygdala is a non-thinking part of your brain. It is all emotional. It is all reactive. It doesn't think. It's a primal part of your brain. So it's all emotional. And here's what's important about this is that because your amygdala is emotional, it drives your right hemisphere. Your right hemisphere actually controls your left hemisphere. So your right hemisphere, that's how your thinking becomes confused and distorted, because when your amygdala is activated, it stirs up all your thinking, it changes all your thinking, suppresses your short-term memory. Well, when your amygdala is scanning the environment and your child is misbehaving, your child tells a lie, your child is defiant, your child steals, as soon as your amygdala sees that, your amygdala goes boom and starts releasing cortisol because it sees a threat. And when your amygdala sees a threat, this is what it's conditioned to do, because it's conditioned for our survival. What it wants to do is remove the threat. So it wants to remove the behavior. It wants to make the behavior go away. It wants to control the behavior. It wants the child to stop. It doesn't want the child to lie anymore. Stop lying to me. You do not steal. Only bad children steal. Do not be defiant. You do what I tell you to do. You don't be disrespectful to me. You don't roll your eyes at me. You don't talk back to me. See what we're doing? Our amygdalas are the obsessive part of our brain. It's so interesting because the more stressed we are, the more it's like we narrow in on that behavior, because that behavior is a threat, and we want that behavior to go away. We want that behavior to stop, because what we do is we perceive at some unconscious level that we're not safe. See, our amygdala stirs up our brainstem. All of our material, all of our stress, all of our trauma that we've experienced from as far back as you can remember gets activated. So you see your child, lying, stealing, or being defiant, you get activated, your stuff comes up. Now you want that behavior to go away. You want it to stop. And in a lot of situations, there's not much we won't do or haven't tried in order to get it to stop. But that's the problem. That is the problem. The problem is we are so obsessed with trying to get the behavior to stop that we fool ourselves. We fool ourselves into thinking that we're actually trying to help our child. It has nothing to do with our child. It has everything to do with us feeling safe by getting the behavior to stop. That's not teaching our child anything because our child is stressed out. Their thinking's confused and distorted. Their short-term memory's shut down. They can't freaking learn. They're not in a state of learning. And because we're stressed out, because we are stressed out too, because our thinking is confused and distorted, because our short-term memory is suppressed, we're not learning either. And so we keep doing the same freaking thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Booyah! Does that turn on the light bulb? I know that turned on the light bulb. I felt it. Someone went, hell yeah, see that? Yep, I got it. Because that's what it is. And that's where the real challenge begins. The real challenge to any behavior problem starts within our amygdala. I'm going to say that to you again because it's so powerful. It makes me want to freaking cry. The real challenge, and the real healing to any behavior problem starts with our amygdala. We have got to be able to turn that little sucker off, or we got to be able to turn that little sucker down. We got to dial that thing down. We got to tamper down that cortisol. We got to flip that light switch off. Whatever it is we got to do, that's where it starts. That's where victory starts, right there. Because your child, you can't do anything with your child when you're stressed out except make them more stressed. So when they're lying, stealing, or being defiant, the first thing that gets turned on is your brain, and your brain wants to stop that behavior. As soon as you go into stopping that behavior, controlling that behavior, you're both held hostage. The only thing you can do is try to use more force, more control, more power, more dominance, more threats. That's the only thing you can do because you're stressed out. You can't see anything else. Fear says fix it. Love says create the environment. Maintain the relationship to allow it to fix itself. See, fear says fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. Love says create an environment. Maintain the relationship to allow it to fix itself. That's what we're going to do. So you got to turn off your amygdala. Turn off your amygdala. As soon as you turn your amygdala off, then you turn on your oxytocin response. Yes! That's what we're going for. We're not going for doing nothing. We're going for being powerful. We're going for doing everything. But you do it by turning on oxytocin, not cortisol. When your child is misbehaving, you got to be able to turn on your oxytocin response. You start by doing it by taking those deep breaths. You're looking at that behavior. You're listening to it. Your child has chocolate all over their freaking mouths, and they are telling you they didn't eat the brownie, and you know the little sucker ate the brownie. You know it. And your amygdala says, just choke him. And you're going to turn that off, and you're going to take a deep breath, and you're just going to look at him or her. And you're not even thinking about the lie anymore. You see what I do as soon as I stop focusing on the behavior, whether it's stealing or whether it's defiance, I'm not focusing on it anymore. It's like I'm stopping, I'm turning my amygdala off. My amygdala says that says it's life or death. My amygdala that says bad things are about to happen. I'm turning it off. And I'm not even thinking about the behavior anymore. Because suddenly I see my child differently. I'm thinking about it because the behavior is important, but all of a sudden I'm not going to die. All of a sudden my child isn't going to live a life of crime. All of a sudden I'm not going to get arrested and put in jail. Suddenly my child's not going to be a sociopath. All of a sudden, my child is scared. And she's stressed out. And she needs me to show up in this moment in a different way. She needs me to plant a love weed seed. A love weed seed. That's what I call them. You plant love weed seeds. Every time, and let me explain the love weed seed analogy. Every time your child misbehaves, they're choosing a pathway in their brain. from their amygdala. Their amygdala gets stressed, they choose a pathway in their brain. Their amygdala gets turned on, they lie. Their amygdala gets turned on, they steal. Their amygdala gets turned on, they defy. They choose a pathway. It's automatic. And now it's conditioned, right? It's a big pathway. It's like the street out in front of your house. That's what that pathway is like. It's like a street out in front of your house. You just pull out of your driveway and zoom, take off down the street. That's what that pathway is like in your child's brain right now. It's automatic. It's conditioned. Amygdala gets turned on, boom, go running down that road. And you got a street in front of your house. That freaking street is big street. Wow, just run right. You can zigzag and turn around, go backwards, just run down the street. Run down the street, run down the street. Well, here's what we got to do. Every time your child tells a lie, you got to be able to turn your amygdala off and turn your oxytocin on so that you can plant a little love weed seed. And the reason I call them weeds is because we know that weeds are the strongest flowers that exist. They'll grow in any condition. So you go in and you drop a little love weed seed right in the midst of your child's lie. And I'm gonna tell you what you do, how you do that. But you drop it in there right in the midst of their lie. You drop that little love weed seed in there. And then you kind of leave it alone. I'm gonna tell you what to do to start watering it, but you kind of leave it alone. Well, what you do just then, when you don't pursue that same path with your child, because a lot of times you're just as you got a street in front of your house, and in your brain it's the same way. Your child tells a lie, and you jump out of your house and go running down that pathway the same way your child's running down that pathway. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to just drop a little love weed seed. And I'm going to do something different. And then what's going to happen is when I have a little repetition, when I practice and drop another little love weed seed, it's like I start watering. I'm going to stop running down that street with him. When he takes off running down that street, I'm going to stand there at the front door and I'm just going to watch it. See, that's what you're doing when you're watching your child's misbehavior. You just start watching. You ain't got to run down the street. Number one, if you run down the street, it's like a 2-year-old. See, when children are stressed, they regress. When a child is acting out, it's because they're stressed out. So your children, whatever their behavior problems are, whenever they're doing that behavior, they're not that age that you think they are. They're at a lower developmental age. So a lot of times it's like they're 2-year-old. They're 18 or 2 or 3. You can correlate it you can correlate all behaviors with an emotional age. You know, children who are aggressive or run away, they're 2 years old. You know, children who lie, usually that's around 3, 4, 5 years old, usually around 4 or 5. Right? They make up stuff, fantastical things in their brain. Children who steal, that's like about 2. Take things that don't belong to them. They're not thinking. All they're thinking about is what makes them feel good. Literally what makes them feel good. And there's a whole process to that. We're going to get into that. But you don't run down the street chasing the 2-year-old. You know why? Although most of us do. You know why we chase the 2-year-old down the street? Because we're afraid he's going to get hit by a car. Right? The 2-year-old hits the front door, goes down the driveway, and we're right behind him. They look back, they get excited, woo! Take off right down the street. We're running with them just as fast as they are. You know why we don't chase the 2-year-old? Because you chase the 2-year-old, they get excited, they think it's a game, they run faster. You stop. You call their name. You get their eye contact. That stops them dead in their tracks. And then you walk out and you start going in the opposite direction. You ever tried that with a 2-year-old? Instead of following them, go in the opposite direction, and they actually start following you. See, that's influencing. That's influence instead of control. So what we want to do is we want to plant these little love weed seeds, and we want to start nurturing them, and we'll start growing them, and so that when your child gets stressed, instead of just running out of the house down the street, they may run to the front door, they may run to the driveway, but then there's this little flower that started to form this new little path. This new little path, I always call it like walking out in your backyard or walking across your front yard. You walk through one, you make this one little path, you can see your footprints. You come back, you see more footprints. You keep walking that path. If you keep walking that path, pretty soon you wear all the grass away and it's a little trail. You wear that little trail. If you keep following that same little path and that same little trail, pretty soon it becomes like a sidewalk. If you follow it long enough, it's like a big old dirt road, and then other people start following it with you. And then heck, why not pave that thing? And then you know what happens to the old street that no one's pursuing anymore? Because see, now there's a different street that actually feels better. See, that street actually never goes, the amygdala never reduces in size. See, the amygdala gets so activated, it's like a muscle. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger. You can't ever turn off that pathway. What the amygdala does is it can learn new reactions. Because it's reactive, it can learn new pathways of reaction. It doesn't have to keep pursuing the same pathway. So when you start planting those little love weed seeds, those little love weeds start growing in the midst of that fear. See, when those love weeds start growing in the midst of that fear, then you no longer have to pursue that same path. And so what happens to an old street that no one uses anymore? Pretty soon, the weeds and the grass start to grow up all over it, and then we pursue this new path, this new highway. See, that's what you're doing when you start turning off your own amygdala in the face of your child's behavior. You're planting a love weed seed. And we're going to grow those love weed seeds to the point that their amygdalas are no longer going to follow that same path. They're going to choose a new path. They're going to see a path that looks different. They're going to see a path that looks better. They're going to see a path that puts a smile on your face. They're going to see a path that actually makes them feel good, makes them feel less threatened. That's what we're going to accomplish. That's what we're going to get to. All right, let's get back to our slides here. All right. There's that bad boy right there. Let's turn the show on. Boom, boom. Okay. All right. So, again, repetition. This is where I'm layering. I'm layering for you. I'm layering your understanding in your brain. When your child is misbehaving, they're at the survival and the reacting level. They're at the amygdala and the brainstem level. There's no learning happening in that level. That's an all emotional level, right? So when they release cortisol, which passes the hypothalamus, and we're able, because what's supposed to happen in the brain is when the cortisol gets released, the hypothalamus kicks in, and then it turns on oxytocin, which starts to cool the brain down. So the cortisol actually never hits the hippocampus full speed. The hypothalamus is supposed to turn on oxytocin, start cooling the brain down. So in the midst of the negative behavior, your child's at the brainstem, the amygdala level. They're not going to learn anything there. Okay, you can't even begin to get them to start responding instead of reacting until you start turning on a little bit of oxytocin. And then until you've got the oxytocin turned on, you can't get them to actually start processing. So even thinking about their challenges, what may be going on. And if you can't get them to process it, you're certainly not going to give them up to thriving, integrating, and learning. See, I call this educational success model. I use this for teachers all the time because children who are stressed out in the classroom are at the brainstem level. They're at the survival reacting level. They can't learn anything there. Why not? Because in times of stress, our thinking is confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. So until you can get that child to even begin calming down, trying to teach them is a moot point. It is insanity. You cannot teach a stressed out child. You have to get them to begin calming down. Remember that. You give a child a punishment. You give a child who's in a state of behavioral acting out, you punish them, you are teaching them nothing. Nothing. You're doing nothing more than increasing stress. Then why do we punish, Brian? Why do we do points and rewards? Why do we do consequences, Brian, if we're not teaching our children? Because we are trying to control the behavior that makes us feel so bad. That's why we do it. That's why we do it. We've been fed a bill of goods that we're doing these things to teach our children, and they don't teach our children anything. Nothing at all. Now, I am fortunate in that I figured this out a long time ago when it came to my own children. But I grew up in the home, in the quintessential home of whip your child to teach them not to misbehave. I grew up in the home of grounding your child and hitting your child and yelling at your child and putting your child in their bedroom and taking all their stuff away, taking the door off the hinges. I grew up in that freaking home. And you know what? It did no good. It did no good. It taught nothing. It taught nothing. You've got to get your child out of the survival and the reacting. If they're stressed out, they can't learn. You got to move them up to responding. You got to get them to processing. You got to get them up to thriving and integrating. Here's the key terms I mentioned. I want you to study these, look at them. And these are just, good touch points. Bruce Perry says you have to have a generalist understanding of the brain. Trauma is any stressful event which is prolonged, overwhelming, and unpredictable, and when such events continue on, unexpressed, unprocessed, and misunderstood, that's the difference between a short-term stressful experience and a long-term, potentially life-altering traumatic experience. Any stressful event, ladies and gentlemen, I got to help you. I want you to understand that. These are common traumatic events. So some of your children, for a fact, dealt with these things. Well, these are not only common traumatic events, but these are also events that are common with regulatory difficulties. Regulation being the ability to maintain stress within a window of tolerance. Your ability to not get so stressed out. When you've experienced any of these events, you've got regulation issues. Abuse, neglect, adoption, foster care, frequent moves, chronic pain, emotional absence, prone depression, needs left unmet. What do these things all have in common? And this is important. They all occur in the context of human relationships. Now, how is that important for you? It's all important. The moment your child becomes stressed because of these specific events, these events all occur in the context of human relationships. So the moment your child becomes stressed, guess who's no longer safe? That's right, any human relationship. Any human relationship, because of their early imprints, because of their early wiring, are no longer safe. So this is why you've got to be able to realize that children, when they get activated and they move into this level of stress, and they've got these state level memories that associate their traumas with other adults, you become just another scary adult like every other scary adult in their life. Very important to remember. This is why you don't want to see them as a threat. This is why seeing your child as a threat, seeing their behavior as a threat is a big problem. Because they're already seeing you as a threat. The moment you're seeing them as a threat, both of you are in trouble. No one can feel safe. And it's one thing to mess up, but you got to go back. You got to fix that. You got to make it better. You got to repair it. So here's some additional traumatic events. Just look at the list for a minute. I just want you to have an idea, because a lot of times we just don't, we forget the events that happen in our lives. And these are not only events that have happened to our children. I want you to think of the events that have happened to yourself as well. I want you to think about the events that you've experienced all the way back from in utero. See, a lot of times we don't look at our birth story. What was going on with mom and dad when you were in the womb? Because all of those affect you now. They affect your stress response system. Now, Rumi says the wound is the place where the light enters you. I love it. I love it. Because what that tells me is that every time your child's misbehaving, there's an opportunity for healing. Who tells you stuff like that? Big Papa Bryan Post tells you stuff like that. Every time your child is misbehaving, there's an opportunity for healing. Why is that? Because when your child is misbehaving, it's because they're stressed out. If your child is stressed out, that means their state level of memory is activated. What's at the state level of memory? Their trauma, their pain. Boom. What are you going to do at their state level of memory? You're going to plant a love weed seed. You're going to plant a love weed seed at state level of memory. And you're going to grow that. You're going to grow that in the place of fear. So here's some steps towards mindfulness. This is very important. I'm not going to go a lot into mindfulness, but I want you to practice this. I want you to have this repetition. The first is to slow down. Sometimes slowing down means not even moving, right? Your amygdala, as soon as there is a misbehavior, commands you into action. I'm going to tell you, put the brakes on. Put the brakes on. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. And I'm telling you that, and I have practiced that in the face of children threatening to cut themselves with glass, threatening to cut their necks with a knife, threatening to burn down the house, holding the gas can, pouring the gas can around the house. I've been in extreme situations with children making threats, and I am telling you, you have time to slow down. Sometimes you don't have to move. You don't have to move. You don't have to say a word. Just stop and acknowledge the moment. I can do all of this within 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds. You know how much time 10 seconds is? 10 seconds, which your amygdala says you got to go now. And usually your amygdala is just going to drive you to do something crazy. Acknowledge the moment. I'm safe right now. I've got this. Recognize your current thoughts. Mindfulness is something you want to practice every day. Breathe. Listen without judgment. Listen to what your thoughts are saying. Listen to what you're wanting to do. And then you start all over again. That's mindfulness practice. And you do that over and over and over and over again. You slow down. You acknowledge the moment. You recognize your current thoughts. No judgments. Just recognize it. You're breathing. And you're listening without judgment. Without judgment of yourself, without judgment of the other, and you do it again. Here are two important terms: regulation and dysregulation. Regulation is the ability to experience and maintain trust within one's window of tolerance. Generally referred to as being calm, focused, or relaxed. The term is utilized by virtually every scientific discipline. It's the ability to maintain stress within a window of tolerance. Okay? Regulation is the ability to maintain stress within a window of tolerance. Dysregulation is the experience of stress outside the window of tolerance. When you are being stressed out, when you are stressed out, you've gone outside of your window of tolerance for how much stress you can handle. Here's what's important. I love this little scientific finding here. It says, it is generally referred to as being stressed out or in a state of distress. It is believed that affect dysregulation is a fundamental mechanism involved in all psychiatric disorders. I'm going to read that again because it's so powerful. And then I'm going to restate it for you. It is believed that affect dysregulation is a fundamental mechanism involved in all psychiatric disorders. What that means is, in other words, it is believed that being stressed out is the fundamental cause of all psychological and emotional problems. That's the Bryan Post way of rewording a potentially complicated scientific finding. It is believed that being stressed out is the fundamental cause of all psychological and emotional problems. It is believed that being stressed out is the fundamental cause of all psychological and emotional problems. If that is true, ladies and gentlemen, if that is true, then what does that tell you that we have to do when faced with a potentially a stressful situation? When faced with misbehavior. Now, you got to understand, when I think stressful situation, I think misbehavior. When I think misbehavior, I think stressful situation. That's the way I want you to see it. That's the way I need you to see it. When you see misbehavior, I want you to think stress and fear. When you see misbehavior, I want you to think stress and fear. I don't want you to think anger. I don't want you to think threat. I want you to see stress and fear. And then I want you to hear that your child needs you because they've gone outside of their window of tolerance. So if it is true that being stressed out is the fundamental reason for all psychological and emotional problems, what does that tell us we need to create? We need to create calm. It's that simple. We got to calm things down. The answer is in our ability to regulate things, calm things down. Let's talk about the stress model. The stress model says all behavior arises from a state of stress. All behavior, lying, stealing, defiance, arises from a state of stress. In between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion. There are only two primary emotions, love and fear. It's through the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we can calm the stress and diminish the behavior. I came up with the stress model 15 years ago. 15 years I've been utilizing this. 15 years I've been using this model, right? All behavior, lying, stealing, defiance arises from a state of stress. When my child is acting out because they're stressed out, they've gone outside of their window of tolerance. In between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion, love or fear. If my child is misbehaving, it means they're stressed out, which means they're in a place of fear. What you have to understand is that fear and stress are interchangeable. Fear and stress are interchangeable. The moment my body becomes stressed, my cellular system constricts into survival, and I am in an emotional state of fear. Emotion is energy in motion. The moment I become stressed, my cellular system constricts into survival. Look at these fists. I'm constricted into survival. When I'm in this state of survival, hold your hands up and put them in a fist. When I am in this state, the state of survival, The state of survival. All I can do is try to survive. Guess what I can't do? I can't thrive. I can't be open to relationship. I can't connect. So when your child is misbehaving, when we get stressed out, we get scared, energy and motion, and it just drives the behavior anymore. Now here's the dynamic part of the model, because when your child misbehaves, when your child has misbehavior, lying, stealing, defiance, and you see it, guess what happens to you? You get stressed out. Guess what happens to you? That drives your emotion. Which emotion? Not love. It drives your fear emotion, then which drives your behavior. Now we have a negative feedback loop, right? We have a conditioned pattern. Now we have a pathway, we have a street out there that we continue to run up and down and do the same thing over and over and over again. When we see behavior, we have got to be able to calm ourselves down as the adults. As the adults, when we see behavior, we have to be able to calm ourselves down. You think I need more coffee? I don't think I need more coffee, but I'm going to have a little bit more coffee because I'm not quite at dysregulation yet, but I want to max my window of tolerance. I will be sufficiently exhausted when this is done, and that is exactly how it's supposed to be. So, all right. You got the stress model. All behavior arises from a state of stress. In between the behavior of stress is the presence of primary emotion. It's through the expression, the processing, and the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we calm the stress and diminish the behavior. When you see behavior, all you got to do is calm the stress. All you got to do is work through the fear and calm the stress. The behavior goes away. That's all we're going to do. I said that's all we're going to do, but you all know it's easier said than done, right? So these are 3 pathways of emotional expression. This is all very important. It's all our foundation for when we start kicking in on these behaviors, right? We're laying a foundation for you. That's what we're doing. The 3 pathways of emotional expression. The 3 pathways of emotional expression are attitudes, feelings, and behaviors. Attitudes, feelings, and behaviors. We always start with attitudes. Why is your child choosing lying, stealing, and defiance right now? Because they don't know anything else. They don't have any other pathway to pursue. Isn't that interesting? Your child has not learned anything else up to this point, except lying, stealing, and defiance. That's why they're choosing the behavior that they're choosing. That's why they're pursuing that path. Now, you think they have. You think they have, and you want to say they have. You want to say you've taught them better. But here's the problem. When you try teaching someone who's stressed out, guess what? They can't learn. And so when you try teaching someone who's stressed out, that tells you that you're in what state? You're in a state of stress too. So we got to stop being stressed out so we can stop worrying about trying to teach our children when they're in a stressed out state and start calming them down when they're stressed out. And once they're calmed down, then we teach them. And guess what? Then their short-term memory's on, and then they can learn. Bam! Mic drop yet again. Attitudes, feelings, and behaviors. We have these 3 pathways of emotional expression because that's how it helps us transition. We have attitudes, feelings, and behaviors to transition from one place to the next, from one point to the next, from one state of being to the next state of being. So then when you think about it, how many of you as children were able to express your attitudes, like roll your eyes, talk back to your parents? No, you weren't, right? You couldn't do that. You couldn't have attitudes. Attitudes were called a sign of disrespect, right? Yes, they were. How many of you were able to fuss and scream and yell and cuss at your parents? No, you weren't. So you can't roll your eyes. You can't talk back. You can't curse. So, attitudes aren't okay. Feelings aren't okay. And then guess what? How many of you were able to have negative behaviors? You seemingly didn't have any control over them, but you tried your best not to let them get you out of control, didn't you? Because you knew you might die, right? Old school parents, you never know. Shoot, they might get carried away and whip you to death. I think my fear of death was a real one on many occasions. So behaviors weren't okay. And now think about your children now. Do you let them roll their eyes? No. Do you let them talk back? No. Do you let them yell? No. Do you let them cuss? No. They do it anyway, don't they? And you tell them it's not okay, right? So they do it anyway. You tell them it's not okay. You know why they do it anyway? Because they can't help it. Because it's how we transition. It's how we transition energy. It's how we release energy so we can free our bodies up and our minds up to do something. They can't help it. That's why they're rolling their eyes and talking back and cussing. They're still doing it, whether you tell them not to do it or not. Whether you point and reward them, whether you give them consequences, they still do it until they get down to behaviors. But do we want their behaviors? No, we don't. So what do we tell them? Stop the behavior. And guess what happens when you tell them to stop the behavior long enough? They get buried at what I call the trauma triangle. When you spend 6 months or longer in anger, depression, and behaviors, because we have to express through behaviors. We can't express through attitudes. We can't express through feelings. We have to express through behaviors. When you tell a child they cannot have that behavior for 6 months or longer, that is an extreme state of stress. That's trauma. I call that the trauma triangle. Many of you right now could be living in a state of trauma and don't even know it. Trauma is where you get diagnosis. It's where you get medication. It's where you get disruptive placements. It's where you get residential treatments. It's where you get restraint. It's where you get extreme behaviors in homes. It's where you get extreme stress from parents. In the trauma triangle, if you spend 6 months or longer there, you are living in a state of trauma. We got to stop that stuff, right? You deserve to not have to live in that state. Your children deserve to not have to live in that state. We got to interrupt that pattern. That's what we're going to do today. You thought we were just talking about lying. You thought we were just talking about stealing or defiance. We're talking about healing here, ladies and gentlemen. This is so much more than just lying, stealing, and defiance. I'm just not that simple. I got to create healing for you. I got to give you the framework to create healing for your child and for yourself, for your home. I want to create a lovevolution in your home. So we got to get to the place to where our children have their behaviors, but we want them to not even have to go to behaviors, right? We don't like attitudes, but guess what? Children roll their eyes. It's not going to hurt you. We don't like our children talking back, but guess what? They're going to talk back. It's not going to hurt you. You know what you have to do? Instead of telling them what not to do, because you got all these old imprints from mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and great grandma and great grandpa and all these other school teachers and everyone else telling your child shouldn't roll their eyes, and the preacher telling your child shouldn't roll their eyes. You're going to stop telling them not to roll their eyes. They're going to roll their eyes at you, and you're going to say a little prayer of gratitude. You're going to be like, thank you. And then you're going to say to them, thanks, honey. And they're going to say, what? You're going to say, thank you, honey. Okay, what are you talking about? Well, nothing. You're not even going to attend to it. And you know what's not going to happen? They're not going to drop into feelings, and then they're not going to drop into behaviors, and then they're going to transition, and they're going to do what you ask them to do. It might not happen the first time or the second time or the third time, but it will on the fourth and fifth time. When you stop seeing the attitude as a threat, it stops driving your child into their feelings and into their behaviors. It keeps them at the attitude level. Because what's the goal? The goal is to get them to do what you want them to do. All right, but let's say they drop down to their feelings. Let's say they start yelling and they start talking back and they call you ugly and they say they don't like the way you decorate the house, they don't like your home, your breath smells bad. You know what you're going to say? After you take a deep breath? You're going to say, thank you, honey. Tell me more. What else? I can tell you're not feeling good. Tell me what else is going on. I understand you don't like the house. I understand you don't like my breath. Thank you for letting me know. What else? Tell me more. You know what that's doing? You know, first of all, what that's doing to your child's brain is it's not chasing them down that street. It's planting a love weed seed. And it just like it creates smoke in their brain. You see it coming out of their ears. They don't quite know how to handle that. We're not doing it for shock, right? We're not doing it to shock them. We're doing it because we truly see something that we haven't seen before. We're seeing that they need to express their attitudes and that they need to express their feelings so they never get to behaviors. But if they get to behaviors, which is probably where they're at, which is the whole point of this presentation, this webinar for you, is that now it's conditioned. We got to expect the lying. We got to expect the stealing. We got to expect the defiance, right? And we do something different about it. But when it happens, when it shows up, we got to handle it differently. The reason we have to handle it differently is because at that level, we want to start planting love weed seeds in the brain that say, you may have chosen it this time, and you may choose it one more time, but you've now got a new experience where you can really, truly do something different. And I'm leading the way. As a parent, I'm leading the way. Now, we went through a process of doing this with our children in the group home, and it would take them 6 months to get out of this process, to get out of the trauma triangle. 6 months to get up out of it. It's not going to take you that long, especially not with these specific behaviors. But if you'll practice this repetition like I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed. Then the relationship factor. What all this does is it allows us to maintain the relationship. The relationship is the single most important thing. The relationship allows you to influence, not control. And control only lasts you so long. It's going to only last you till your child's 10 or 11 years old. You can try to control them all you want, but when they hit teens, you can't control them anymore. They're going to do what they want to do. And then you're really going to get scared. We want to work on the relationship because the relationship influences behavior. We want to be able to influence our children throughout the lifespan. We don't want to have to control and empower them because influence teaches them internal mechanisms of control, not external. See, power and control is all about external mechanisms of control. Reactivity versus responsibility. This is what I was saying with the difference between the emotional brain and the right hemisphere. So we got to move from a place of being reactive to a place of being responsible. Reactivity is automatic. It's unconscious. There's no thoughts. There's no effort, and it requires maximum energy. It requires maximum energy because it stresses you out. It's fear-based, it punishes, and it controls. That's all reactive. That's what we end up teaching our children. When we talk about consequences, when we talk about teaching children responsibility by giving them consequences, you're not teaching a child responsibility by giving them consequences because there's nothing in the giving of a consequence which is actually a responsible act. The consequence is a reaction to an action. So what you're teaching your child when you give them a consequence is actually reactivity. You're not teaching them responsibility. But that's a whole nother presentation. We want to get to a place of responsibility where we're taking responsibility. It's delayed. You got to slow down. It's more conscious. It requires both effort and energy. It's love-based. It teaches and it influences. This is the parenting continuum. I just shared this with you just to give you a little idea about where things are at, you know, the common practices we use with children versus the not so common practices, right? They fall on a continuum. You know, the most common things we do: timeout, isolation, spanking, consequences, behavior modification, yelling, physical tactics like restraint, medication rather than modification. These are all things that are on a continuum of reactivity and fear, and ultimately the death penalty. These are things we do with our children over and over and over again. Responsibility is where we want to move to. Responsibility is over on another side of the continuum. It's on the side of the continuum of perfect love. Right? But you got to ask yourself, or ask me, say, Bryan, well, why do we do these things? Why do we do all these timeouts and isolations and spankings and things like that? These are the most common things we do. Why do we do them? And I'm going to tell you the answer to that. Because they work with 90% of children. With 90% of children, all the things on the fear and reactivity side work. You do these things with your 90% of children, and it changes. But here's something you have to understand. With 90% of children, anything you do will work. With 90% of children, anything you do will work. We do these things with the 90% because basically we don't know any different and we're lazy. These are all lazy parenting techniques. They don't require any energy. They don't require any effort. Just look at them. They require nothing. We don't even have to get up for most of these things. We don't even have to get out of our seat. Now the other side, that requires some time and some energy. But see, with 90% of children, you can do these things and it works. But you know why? It's not because yes, it is because with 90% of children, anything you do will work. The reason is because 90% of children have the ability to regulate their brain. 90% of children have regulated brains. 90% of children can handle stress. 90% of children can go to school and be successful without teachers. 90% of your children can raise themselves. They don't even need you. They can get up, they can brush their teeth, they can take a bath, they can fix their food, they can call their friends on the phone, they can go play, they can go to the mall, they can drive the cars. You ain't even got to worry. 90% of the children, but that's not the children we're talking about. Those aren't the children we're talking about. The children we're talking about have trauma brains. They have sensitive brains. They're stress sensitive and fearful. The children we are talking about are stress sensitive and fearful. The child who lies all the time, incessantly, nonstop. The child who's always defiant. The child who always is stealing from people in the home, from stores. These are children who have trauma brains. They're stressed out. They're easily fearful, stress sensitive and fearful. These things don't help that child. These things just stress the child out even more. They just make it more challenging for them, which then makes it more challenging for you. Right? You see that. I know you see that. I know you feel that. But because we can do these things with 90% of children, because it works with 90% of children in the cognitive distortion of our brains, we think it's going to work with all children. So with children with trauma brains, with sensitive children, stress-sensitive children, we not only do these things, but if these things don't work, guess what we do? We do more of them. What kind of sense does that make? It's like if something's not working, just do more of it. It's ludicrous. Any therapy or technique that is confrontational, aggressive, threatening, blaming, or fear-based will ultimately not be effective for creating healing environments for attachment-challenged children. Any therapy or technique that is confrontational, aggressive, threatening, blaming, or fear-based will ultimately not be effective for creating healing environments for attachment-challenged children. And that brings us to how to end lying in 30 days or less. So here's what I want to do. I want to take a very short 3-minute break. Stand up, move your hands, stretch. Give your head a good scratching and sugar booger, booger. And pop, move around. We're going to start back in 3 minutes. All right, gang. Getting back here again. Um, Christy said that there was a question about discipline. Christy, you want to shoot me that text on that question, or can I find it somewhere and copy and paste it and get that up real quick? The thing about discipline, oh, that's interesting. So the thing about discipline that I want everyone to understand is that the definition of discipline is to teach, not to punish, right? So from under a perspective of love, and just under the perspective of what discipline is, period, the definition of discipline is to teach, not to punish. And so if you think about that from the perspective of truly teaching, what state of the brain do we want the child to be in? And what, in order for us to be an effective teacher, what state do we want to be? Well, we want to be in an effective brain-based state as well. So we want to be able to be thinking clearly, and we want our short-term memory to be active. I mean, we want to be in a good space when it comes time to be educators, to be effective disciples. Is really where the word comes from, is being an effective disciple. An effective disciple makes sure that their students are in a place of being taught, so in a state so they can actually learn. That's what discipline means. Discipline doesn't mean punishment. See, that's another one of those kind of myths and beliefs that we've what's the word? Starts with a P, I think. It just popped right out of my head. That we've perpetuated over time is the belief that, discipline is punishment, when in fact discipline is not punishment. Effective discipline is teaching. All right. We're gonna just just a little bit. Can I give? Yes, I will give an example. Christy asked me if I could give you guys an example about teaching, with lying. Yes, I can give an example about teaching with lying, because that's what we're about to get into. And so here's the thing that I'm picking up on when I hear that question. One of the first things I'm picking up on is you're still focused on the lie itself. See, a lot of times we want to teach the child to not lie. And as long as we're focused on teaching the child to not lie, we're focused on the lie. I've got to get you to stop focusing on the behavior and start focusing on the child. This is what's important. Yeah, see, I'm getting that all the way down my spinal cord thing again. When we focus on the child and not on the behavior, we are actually fostering the environment for learning. We are fostering the environment and nurturing the environment for moral development and consciousness and learning and choosing not to lie, but to tell it. You see, the reason children lie is because it's scary. They lie because it's scary. They lie because they're taking a risk. So when we're talking about teaching about not lying, you don't have to worry about not teaching a child to not lie. When you're paying attention to the child and not the behavior is going to go away. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When you work on regulating the child's stress and regulating their fear, the behavior will start going away by itself. The behavior is secondary. And that's what I learned a long time ago when I discovered the stress model. The stress model says all behavior arises from a state of stress. If that's true, if all behavior arises from the state of stress, no different than the scientific finding that stress is the fundamental mechanism responsible for all psychological and emotional challenges. If those things are true, then all I got to do is remove the stress, reduce the stress, reduce the behaviors, guys. The brain is an amazing organ. I mean, it is amazing. We are smart. Children are smart. Children know not to lie. Children know not to steal. Children know they don't have to be defiant until they are stressed out. That's really the simplicity of this, and the beauty of it is they already know these things. Children learn 90% of the time from modeling. Modeling, not what you say, not what you do, but how you feel when you're doing and saying it. That's how they learn. So your children know that it's not okay to lie. They know it's not. This is not about cognitive. See, this is not about thinking. You know, ending lying, stealing, or defiance is not about thinking. Ending lying, stealing, and defiance is about reaching your child's level of distress, dysregulation, and fear that's driving that behavior, whatever the behavior may be. Once you start addressing that, once you start helping them feel safe at that level, the behavior is going to go away. I've just seen it too many times. I'm talking extreme behavior. Extreme behaviors, not lying, stealing, defiance, which can seem really extreme, but really they're pretty mild compared to what some behaviors could be. You address the stress and the fear, the behavior's going to shift. So we'll have Christy pull up some more questions as they might come in, and we're going to get on into how to end line. We're going to start right here. Boom, boom, boom. So how to end lying in 30 days or less. Here's where it starts. All severe behavior is predictable. The first thing you got to do is you've got to ask yourself. You got to be an investigator. You've got to ask yourself, when is my child most likely to lie? If your child is in the midst of telling a lie, I want you to ask yourself, what was going on leading up to this situation? See, we're going to stop focusing on the lying. We're just going to stop focusing on it. We're going to start focusing on what's leading up to it. See, that's the process that dictates the outcome. I'm going to say that again. The lie is the outcome. What leads up to it is a process. What leads up to it is the process. That's what we're going to start focusing on. We're going to start focusing on outcomes. Well, I'm not worried about 30 days or less, because I know some of you will start to change this dynamic immediately. All severe behavior is predictable. Lying arises from stress. It is life or death. So remember, when we talked about the brain, and we're going to go into, we'll revisit it because I want to refresh your brain. I want to keep you thinking about it. When you ask your child if they have told a lie, or if you ask them about something and they lie to you, their amygdala is activated, which means their brainstem is activated, which means their trauma is activated, which means they are in a life or death scenario. It's not as simple as just telling a lie to trick you or convince you that what you think is not the case. It is life or death. I am terrified for my life right now. That's why I'm telling you this lie. You could have a smile on your face, you could be talking to me gently. It doesn't matter. I don't trust you right now. I'm going to freaking die and you're going to kill me. It's as simple as that. So I don't care how much you tell me you love me. I don't care how much dessert you're going to offer me. I ain't telling you the truth because you're going to kill me. It's as simple as that. Because that's the part of the brain that's activated. All you got to do is remember, in the midst of a lie, what is happening for the child in their brain is the worst thing that has ever happened is threatening to happen again. Now, what is that for your child? Because that's where they go to when they're telling a lie. In that state of lying, the worst thing that has ever happened is threatening to happen again. Now, you ask yourself, would you tell the truth? What was the worst thing that ever happened to you? If that thing was threatening to happen again, would you tell the truth? Heck no, you wouldn't. You'd lie too. And we do that until we get to the place where our fear and our stress is not significant enough to cause us to need to lie anymore. That our oxytocin, And our relationship and our regulation is strong enough that we don't have to tell that. So until we get to that point, until we have enough love weed seeds planted in our brain in the midst of lying, we're going to keep lying. Lying will stress you out. This is important. Lying will stress you out as the parent. Your child lies, you get stressed. Your amygdala gets turned on. Remember, just like we just went over in the brain. As soon as the child lies, your amygdala gets turned on. As soon as your amygdala gets turned on, your cortisol gets released. As soon as your cortisol gets released, your oxytocin gets suppressed. As soon as your cortisol is surging, you're not thinking clearly, your short-term memory is suppressed. And then you act crazy. So now you're stressed out and acting crazy, and your child is stressed out and lying like crazy. So now you got a negative feedback loop, and that's the conditioning. That's, bam, we got to break it. We got to break the conditioning. So you got to stop getting stressed out when your child lies to you. Learn to breathe and turn on your oxytocin. Child tells a lie, you stop. Take a deep breath. Don't say another word. Why are you doing this? The reason you're stopping and breathing and not saying a word, and I mean literally, Johnny, did you take my wrench? Johnny, is that my wrench? So I'm gonna go one beyond Johnny, did you take my wrench? I'm gonna say, Johnny, is that my wrench that you are holding in your hand? Johnny, is that my wrench you holding in your hand right now? Instead of doing, well, let's say you already do that. And Johnny's going to look at you, and he's going to shake his head and say no. Now, every fiber in your body is going to tell you to say in return, now, Johnny, you know that's my wrench. Why are you going to sit there and just lie to me when you know you're holding my wrench in your hand? Every fiber in your body is going to tell you to do it. Some fibers in your body might want to just cause you to just smack Johnny, bam, right upside his head. I know what has happened. I know parents do it. I've had it happen to me before. But here's what I need you to do. What I would like for you to do is not even ask Johnny if it's your wrench, because you already know it's your wrench. But our reactions happen automatically. So after you've asked him, Johnny, is that my wrench? And he says, no, Daddy, that's not your wrench. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to look at him. Take another deep breath. You see how your body, do it right now. We need to practice. Practice with me. You see how your body starts to relax again? And you start, as soon as you do that, like your thinking starts to get back online. And it's like, I know my kid is not like absolutely crazy, because he's got to know that's my wrench. And he knows I know it's my wrench. But as soon as you start breathing, you start turning on your oxytocin. See, now you're winning, right? Because instead of running down that path with him, he took off. You made it to the driveway, but you stopped. So he's going to be running down the street. He's going to realize he doesn't hear you running behind him. He's going to stop. He's going to see you standing down there, and you're looking at him. Keep breathing. And you are thinking, wow. And he's looking at you, and he's wondering, why are you not chasing me? And you just kind of shake your head. And you can even smile once you get it. You can even smile. But really what you're going to move into, where I want you to go with this, is in touch into your sadness. Because your sadness is going to tell you, oh my gosh, wow, he's holding my wrench in his hand. And he is so scared that he's going to deny that that's my wrench. Holy crap. What kind of relationship have I created with my child that would cause him to need to lie to me about a wrench? You see how it all slows down? And we're within the span of what, a minute? Everything just slowed down, didn't it? That's what your brain does when you start breathing. Your brain slows down. Your oxytocin turns on. Right? That's where I need you to get to. that's when you start breaking the conditioning. So you have to break the conditioning, right? You're breaking the conditioning. He's down the street. You're at the driveway. And when I'm using that analogy, Facebook Live, I'm using that analogy based on analogy I just used when a child pursues a path from their amygdala. And that path is like a wide street. As soon as they have a reaction, they run down that path because it's wide open. So we have to stop chasing them down that path. We have to stop at the driveway, and then we have to start planting these love weed seeds. We start planting these love weed seeds so we can create a prettier, more attractive path for the child to pursue instead of running down that scary street. When you stop at the driveway, you don't run down that street anymore. You start planting those love weed seeds. So that's important. That's when you start breaking the conditioning. See, just by seeing something different. See, that's why we spent the last hour and a half almost just layering that understanding so you can see something different. I really need you to be able to see that. And then you plant those love weed seeds. See, that's the answer. See, that's where we're making the magic. And then it's called ignore the lie, don't ignore the child. Right? So let's move in. Let's look at the stress model. Child lies. You get stressed. Child is stressed. Child lies, child stressed, you get stressed. Everyone's fear is activated, right? Which then drives more lying, which then drives us to tell the child not to lie. What we want to do is we want to hear child lies. We want to see child is stressed. We want to see that child is stressed and child is probably also fearful. We want to be able to calm the fear. So this is called ignore the lie, don't ignore the child. You look at Johnny and you say, son, everything's going to be okay. You understand? Dad loves you. And then you're going to turn around, you're going to walk away. You're going to turn around and walk away, and you're going to leave it alone. And Johnny's going to be standing there with the wrench in his hand, and he's not going to know what to do. And he might start crying. He's going to get a real funny look on his face. But I want you to turn around and walk back in the house. I don't want you to say anything else. And he's going to get scared. See, right now, this is where the magic, this is where teaching comes in. This is discipline. This is discipline. Discipline, the definition of discipline is to teach, not to punish. This is where the teaching comes in. You turn around and walk in the freaking house. Johnny is standing there with the wrench. He's having a holy shit moment. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. He doesn't know what to do. Oh my gosh, I know this is Dad's wrench. I got to go put it back. He already knows I've got it. I don't know what to do. Oh crap. That's where teaching comes in, right? You're letting his brain process. You're letting his brain feel all that fear, feel all that overwhelm, all that conditioning. He wants to run down that street so bad, but he can't because you just removed the threat. By looking at him, by taking those deep breaths, looking at him, realizing that he is stressed and scared in that moment, and that's why he's lying to you, and you turn around, you tell him, honey, it's okay. Dad loves you. We're going to be all right. And you turn around and you walk in the house. Whoo, that's powerful. Powerful. Then I want you to wait. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. I want you to wait a couple hours. And then I want you to come back and I want you to catch him when he's in the midst of doing whatever it is he's doing. And I want you, if he's sitting down, I want you to get on your knees. You know, we're going to. Love is so powerful because it's so freaking humbling. Ooh, I just love it. When you move into a space of love, you can do some of the most humbling stuff because it's so powerful. Because you realize what you are vibrating. You just it makes you just want to humble yourself. You get on your knees, find your child. He's playing, he's in his room, he's doing whatever. Get on your knees and you look at him. It could be a teenager. Oh, this is gonna be so good. Take his hand and you say, son, I love you. And when you tell me a lie, it scares me. Now listen to me. I didn't say when you told me a lie about the wrench, I didn't say, now tell me the truth. Did you take the wrench? I didn't say that. I said, son, I love you. When you tell me a lie, it scares me. You've got the kid's attention right now. I mean, what? Talk about effective teaching environment. Woo! You can't get any better than that. It scares me because it makes me feel like you don't trust me. And if you can't trust me, if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe. And I want to always be able to keep you safe, son. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. You've already been through too much. We've been through too much. I want to be able to keep you safe. You understand? Child looks at you. Yeah, you could have some tears. If you get in touch with that, let them come up. Feel it. Feel it. See, this is the emotion. That's love. You feel it. Hold your child's hand. See their pain. Feel their pain. Feel their pain. Let the tears come out. When you say I love you, mean it. See, we're not doing any of that fake happiness kind of, yeah, I'm going to get you one up you kind of stuff. This is real stuff. You want to overcome fear-based behaviors, you got to hit it with love. You got to hit it with real love. When you take your child's hand, when you stop and breathe, when your child's lying to you in your face and you stop and breathe and you calm your fear down and you turn on your oxytocin and you see his little face and you realize how ludicrous and how ridiculous his lie is, which tells you just how freaking scared and stressed out he is. I want you to feel that. I want you to feel that a child who's lying to you about the most ridiculous thing, and if you can't feel it, it's because your heart is too stressed. You got to calm yourself down. But I want you to understand that a child who's lying to you about the most ridiculous thing is terrified. He's terrified. He's so scared. And you got to stop. You got to stop and you got to see that he's just scared. He's just scared. He's terrified. Remember, it's life or death. And when you get down in that child's, on your knees, when you get that child's attention, you take his hand and you say, I love you. I want you to know I love you. And I want you to know it scares me when you tell me a lie because it makes me feel like I can't keep you safe. And I want to be able to keep you safe because no one's kept you safe before. And I want to keep you safe. I don't want you to hurt. I don't want you to be scared. I want you to know we're going to be okay. You don't have to lie to me. You don't have to tell me a lie because I'm here to keep you safe. And I'm sorry if I've gotten mad at you before because I've lied to you. I'm sorry if I've punished you before. I'm sorry if I've yelled at you. I'm sorry I didn't know I didn't know what else to do. I want to keep you safe. Do you understand? And your child's going to shake their head. And you're going to say, okay. And you're going to rub their head. And you're going to walk away. And you're done. And you tell me that that's not going to be powerful. When I start talking to you about ending lying, ending stealing, ending defiance in less than 30 days, you didn't have any concept of the power I was talking about bringing into you. This is powerful stuff. This is why I kill children. I've had children stop lying immediately. They've never lied again to their parents. See, we're fighting fear here, mom and dad. We're fighting fear, and the only way we overcome fear is with maximum love, maximum love, maximum love. You got to face fear with maximum love. You got to be able to calm yourself down and stop getting so freaking scared over a dadgum old lie. Stop letting that dang little lie terrify you. And calm yourself down and get in touch with your love. And you ignore that lie, but don't ignore that child. You do that. You meet that lie, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to hope and pray your child lies to you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. Like after this presentation, I want you to hope your child lies to you. Because I want you to be able to practice this. Because remember, that's where you create healing. Because every time your child lies to you, they're giving you an open door into their deepest, scariest pain. And when they give you that open door, that open invitation, you go in there and you plant those love weed seeds. You plant those love weed seeds and you keep watering. And that's why your child's going to stop lying to you. Your child's going to stop lying. Let's look at this. It's got me all emotional. But this stuff is emotional. That's the thing. This stuff is emotional. It's not head stuff. This is emotional stuff. See, lying is not a thinking behavior. Lying is an emotional behavior. Same way with stealing, same way with defiance. These are emotional behaviors. Relationship is emotional. If you just want to be heady with this stuff, you're not going to get it. Get out of your head and get in your heart. That's how you turn this stuff off. This is how this stuff becomes powerful. So let's look at this for a minute. We talked about these 3 emotional pathways. Let's look at the brain for just a moment. What am I doing? Why is this thing? I didn't put my brain cell back in here. So that's why I'm missing it. What happens when you're practicing at the level of the brain? When you're practicing how to not get triggered by your child's lie, but to stop and take the deep breaths, to realize that the lying arises from their stress and the fear, you're turning on your oxytocin. And then they're lying because they're in a state of stress. They're in a state of fear. It means their state level is activated. It means all of their old trauma memories are activated. When you don't increase the stress in the moment, what you are doing, so they've got a pathway that says, when I'm stressed, bad things happen. That's why they lie. The pathway says, when I'm stressed, bad things happen, so they tell the lie. When you show up, and instead of something bad happening, you show up with love, and you plant that love weed seed, then you're planting a seed that says, in their brain, so this is what happens in their brain. You plant a seed that says, when I'm stressed, bad things happen. When I get scared, bad things happen. Therefore, I lie. You plant a seed that says, when I'm stressed, bad things happen. Bad things happen, so I usually lie. The last time I got stressed and I lied, nothing bad happened. And see, Bruce Perry says that our brain always returns to the way the event was handled the last time. The brain always returns to the way the event was handled the last time. So your child lies, you handle it differently. Next time they get stressed and they want to lie, their brain's going to return to the way you handled the last time. Well, the way you handled it the last time wasn't threatening. It wasn't so scary. It wasn't so stressful. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel good because you got all emotional and golly, and got all loving and just made me feel all kinds of wow. I mean, I think I'd rather tell the truth than have you feeling all that. You see, what the brain understands then is that when I'm stressed, bad things don't have to happen. Therefore, I don't have to lie. I can take the risk and tell the truth. And when your child takes the risk and tells the truth, that's it. Because that's what you want. That's what you want. You say, thank you for being honest with me. I love you. I love you. Next time you want to borrow my tools, just come ask me. Or even better, let's get you your own tools. Or even better, let's work on it together. Or even better, Let's go do some research, and let's go to the store, and let's pick out tools. Let's go to the pawn shop, and let's pick out tools together that'll be yours, and we can work on stuff together. See how I just took that one scenario and just made it this beautiful relationship securing building thing? That's how you overcome lying in 30 days or less. That's simple. But it's easier said than done. But it's that simple. It's that powerful. And then you're teaching your child that they can use their attitudes and they can use their feelings. And they don't have to drop into their behaviors anymore. You're teaching your child that when you feel stressed and you have the behavior, you feel afraid and you have the behavior you want to lie, you don't have to. You can calm that fear down. You can calm that fear down and you can take a risk. And I need you to understand that when your child tells you the truth for the first time, they are taking an enormous risk. Sometimes before they can tell you the truth, they'll just get to a place of not being able to say anything. It's a freeze place. They just freeze and they don't say anything. Take that as a win. Just tell them it's okay. It's okay, honey, look at me. We're okay. We're okay. And sometimes you get them through that shock, they'll melt into sadness. They'll melt into tears. See, the victory is when you can calm yourself down and you don't see that lying as a threat anymore. You can see the pain that's causing their lie to come about. That's where you win. That's how you reduce lying in less than 30 days. Now let's talk about how to end stealing in 30 days or less. Let's talk about how to end stealing in 30 days or less. Let me check over in the chat here. Oh, I get that. So a parent is saying a child rarely accepts parental love such as hand holding. In fact, it tends to cause meltdowns. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You do. You know your child. Now listen to this. Here's what I really like about that comment. Bryan Post is not teaching you tools and techniques. Bryan Post is teaching you an understanding. If I teach you tools and techniques, I am giving you a very limited application for a very specific behavior. I don't want to do that. I want to give you an understanding that you can take and you can utilize and you can modify it. And because you know your child, because you know yourself, you can help it work for you. Don't touch your child if it stresses your child out, right? Don't touch your child. Don't hug your child. You might not even be able to make eye contact with your child. You might have to stand beside your child and look where they're looking, because you know why? Because eye contact is too stressful. It's too stressful to the frontal lobe, so children can't make eye contact. So don't make eye contact. Don't touch if you can't touch. But what that tells you, don't take it personally. That's what I want you to understand. Don't take those things personally. They're all behaviors. And all behavior arises from what? Stress. All behavior arises from stress. If your child can't handle touch, it's because they're so stressed out they can't handle any more sensory input. That's why. See, we take it personally and say, oh, my child doesn't want me to touch. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Your child doesn't want to be touched because they're too stressed out to be touched. They already lied. They're already in life or death. They're already about to lose their stuff. Maybe you can't touch them. And maybe instead of waiting 1 or 2 hours, you got to wait till the end of the day. It doesn't matter when you come back and sit down, put your hands in front of your child and get down on your knees and put your hands on your heart, right? You don't have to touch your child. I like to touch the child where possible. If you melt enough, if you calm yourself down enough, if you turn on enough oxytocin, I bet you can touch your child. I bet you it won't cause another meltdown. You know why it causes another meltdown? Because your child is correlating touch with not being safe. They need you to be in a state. Your child needs you to be in a state to make that okay. To be able to say, honey, mom's not going to hurt you. Daddy's not going to hurt you. And I'm sorry that it feels like that you feel so scared. But we're not going to hurt you. You're safe. You got to get into that emotional connection. It's not head stuff. You got to get into the emotional stuff. You got to calm yourself down. You got to turn on your oxytocin. Turn off that amygdala. Stop seeing that threat. Sometimes parents may have to do some grieving to get through the pain and to release some of the resentment they can feel towards their children after having gone through these behaviors for so long. So I'm going to give you an understanding so you can start to transform it from the inside out. That's what becomes important. You transform from the inside out, and don't try to, it may not happen at one time. Like I said, you want your child to lie 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Right? Thank you for that comment. It's very helpful. Okay, let's talk about how to end stealing in 30 days or less. How to end stealing in 30 days or less. So the first thing we got to do is we got to remember, all severe behavior is predictable. All severe behavior is predictable. Stealing is predictable. Your child is stealing in response or reaction to a certain situation or person or experience. Put that in your head. They're stealing in response to a certain situation, reaction, experience. It's probably happening at home, it's happening in school, or it's happening in stores. It's predictable. All severe behavior is predictable because it is conditioned. That's why it's predictable. All severe behavior is predictable because it's a reaction to stress. That's why it's predictable. So it's not that hard to figure out the times when your child is stressed. When your child is stressed and when they're likely to steal. And so this is why I gave you the homework assignment of just paying attention. If you didn't get an opportunity to do the homework assignment, because you're going to get a recording, of this webinar, I want you to be able to watch the times, just do investigation of when your child is prone to stealing, right? Investigate. Look for it. It's predictable, all right? Stealing is triggered by stress. It is an addiction. Let's see, what you have to understand is a lot of times when children steal, they also lie about it. So this is important too. But the significance with stealing is that it is an external attempt to soothe an internal state. So it's like any other addiction. A child who's stressed out learns that stealing is a way to make themselves feel better for a short period of time because of the rush that they get, the endorphins that they get, the adrenaline that they get, the oxytocin that they get. Everything going on in their brain feels good. And I speak this from personal experience. I used to steal as a child, and it would feel good to me. And there was times when it was the only thing that did feel good. I would steal and just be stressed out and go to the store and just steal something. Steal some candy, or steal some chips, or steal some cassette tapes, or any crazy thing. Just because in that moment it would feel so good to me. I remember I went next door to my buddy Stephen Combs' house. We used to pick up cans all the time, and I filled a little bag full of cans, a little Walmart bag full of cans. I stole from my buddy a little bag of cans, which is worth 5 cents probably. Maybe not even worth a quarter. I think at the time our cans were 25 cents a pound. So a little Walmart bag full of cans is worth a nickel. But I needed that rush. So children steal because it becomes addictive, right? You have to realize that it's triggered by stress and it's an addiction. So it's going to take us a little bit of work. I said 30 days or less. 100% confident in that. It's going to take us a little bit of work, but we're going to get to it. And then stealing will stress you out. It's the same thing with the brain. You go back and review the brain. You see the stealing, you hear about the stealing, your amygdala gets stressed out. Your amygdala gets stressed out. It's the same with lying. What you then want to do, what you then can't do, is meet your child in any kind of loving, emotionally connected way. What you meet them with is with more stress. So the first thing you got to do is you got to start breathing, because the big thing about stealing with children is that it oftentimes needs to be prevented. It needs to be a preventative practice, not an interventive practice. When it's an interventive practice, the child is already stolen, right? So then we didn't truly do anything different. What I'm telling you is that you have the ability to change the dynamic of stealing with your child. If you wait until after the child is stolen, then you didn't do anything different, right? So what's the first excuse we want to give is, well, he wasn't with me. Well, that is an excuse, because your responsibility to your child is to help keep your child safe. If you know that your child doesn't feel safe in whatever environment you've sent them into, and then you don't do anything to help create containment in that environment, to honor the fact that they get stressed out and get scared and will put things in their pockets that don't belong to them, then you're not taking responsibility. See, we got to be willing to take responsibility for these behaviors instead of being reactive. That's how we change the dynamic. That's how we change the condition. A lot of times we don't want to do that. We don't want to take responsibility because we don't know how. Well, how to take responsibility is by taking it. What do I need to do to change the dynamics that go involved in my child getting so stressed out that he needs to steal? That's how you take responsibility. Ask of yourself, what do I need to do to help my child feel safe enough not to steal? Well, you never even knew that you needed to ask that question, first of all. So now you know you need to ask that question. What do I need to do to take responsibility? So it's no longer an excuse that my child went to school and they stole something and it's not my fault. Yes, it is not your fault. It's your responsibility. You have a responsibility to your child regardless of where they're at. If you know they steal because they're stressed out and scared, which tells you that you're letting your child go out into the community stressed out and scared. Well, what can you do to help them feel safe? See, this is important. This is very important for breaking that dynamic. I should have never been able to go to the store. My parents didn't know I was stealing them. They didn't know I was going to the store and taking things. They eventually learned that because I got caught, got followed home by Miss Gaskell and got my butt whipped and got grounded, but I didn't get restricted from going to the store. And it wouldn't even be a matter of getting restricted. See, my parents they didn't know. You don't know. They didn't know. They didn't know I was stressed out. That's why I was going to the store and stealing and taking candy and eating it because it made me feel better. They didn't know that. But now you know. Now you know that going to your child stealing is an attempt to make themselves feel better. It's not their responsibility to make themselves feel better. It's our responsibility as adults to help them feel better. I shouldn't have been allowed to go to the store. Heck, I maybe shouldn't have even been allowed to leave the block. Maybe not even should have been allowed to leave the yard. Maybe should not even been allowed to go outside without a parent there. Well, see, these are all things that we as adults can do to take responsibility. Now, stealing will stress you out. That's important to remember. You got to learn to breathe and turn on oxytocin. You got to learn to calm yourself down. You got to learn to calm yourself down and turn on oxytocin. Turn on your anti-stress hormone. Turn on your love hormone. Because at this point, and I'm just thinking in my head, I visualize a lot. I'm visualizing that your child has already stole something and now you're just finding out. Well, see, now you're not into the dynamic of stealing anymore. You're in the dynamic of lying. See, a calm brain can make those shifts. See, a calm brain is a flexible brain. So now we're not dealing with stealing anymore. We're dealing with lying. If the child is already stolen. See, dealing with stealing has to be preventative in nature. You want to help educate your child so they can understand they don't have to steal. So it's preventative in nature. It's not interventive. If you're intervening, they've already stolen. I remember in our group home, our son Kevin, he used to take people's stuff all the time, and the boys would get so mad. They get so mad. Tell Kevin to stop stealing my stuff. Tell Kevin to stop stealing my stuff. I mean, they'd say it all the time. Tell Kevin to stop stealing my stuff. I'm gonna bust him up. He keeps stealing my stuff. And finally, I got them all together. I said, guys, Kevin's not stealing your stuff. Someone steals something, it means it disappears. That means you lose it. Kevin's taking your stuff. It's all in his bedroom. He was a hoarder. He'd take your stuff and he'd be in his bedroom. I said, it's in his bedroom. If you want your stuff back, just go in there and get it. Just go in there and get it. And Kevin was there and he looked funny because he knew it was the truth. And then finally I said, Kevin, stop going in their rooms. You're no longer allowed to go in their rooms. You go in their rooms, you don't feel safe anymore. You don't feel safe. You take stuff that doesn't belong to you. And you get all that stuff built up around you because you grew up in neglect. You grew up and didn't have anything. You grew up and didn't get to keep your stuff. How many of your kids have been in home after home after home and they didn't grow up with a room where all their stuff is their stuff? Their earliest experiences were around loss and neglect and not having. And so they want to give because it makes them feel good. But once I told Kevin he didn't have to do that anymore, he stopped going in their room and taking their stuff. The boys didn't stop living together. He stopped taking their stuff. They stopped getting stressed out because it was no longer him stealing their stuff. I gave them the power to realize they could just go in and get it. See, but my responsibility to all of them is to help Kevin understand why he's taking stuff that doesn't belong to him. Because it makes him feel better. So you got to break the conditioning. You break the conditioning by planting a love weed seed, by educating and practicing containment. See, so here's how you deal with stealing. You say to your child, honey, I know you take things when you get stressed out because it makes you feel better. Listen to those words. Honey, I know you take things, and I use the word honey. I like to use the word honey. Sweetheart, baby. Just because it puts me in a different emotional place. Honey, you take, and honey could be my 17-year-old teenage son. It could be my 22-year-old teenage son. I mean, it could be my 16-year-old daughter. It doesn't matter. It could be my 2-year-old. Honey, sweetheart, it's because I'm in a different emotional place. You take things that don't belong to you because you are stressed. And when you take those things, it makes you feel better. Makes you feel better. But it only makes you feel better for a short period of time. And then you get scared, and if you get caught, you have to lie, and then we're both feeling really bad. I really want to help you feel safe enough so that you don't have to take things that don't belong to you. Can you do me a favor? The next time you are feeling stressed, feeling like you need to take something, could you just come and let me know that you need a little time? That maybe we can spend a little time together. Maybe there's something that I can do. I don't want to try to stop you from stealing. I don't like it that you steal. It's not safe. It's going to get you in trouble. So I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just trying to have an opportunity to provide you some safety and get you to feel better so you don't have to take things that don't belong to you. Then your mom and dad don't get mad at you. Your brother and sister don't get mad at you. Your friends at school don't get mad at you. Make you feel bad. But I just want you to remember, you take things that don't belong to you because you feel stressed. So you have to plant that seed for your child. That's taking an unconscious experience and making it conscious, helping them understand that. But then what that's also doing is planting a love weed seed. Because you've been getting upset with them up until this point, feeling helpless and overwhelmed, right? So that all the stealing has gotten countered with something negative. So I want you to plant a love weed seed by providing that education and providing them an invitation to be able to come to you and to get support, to get soothing, to get comfort if they need it, right? That's the important thing about stealing. But stealing is so unconscious because it's like an addiction. So you communicate to them, you educate them, and then you let them know that when you're in these environments and you're prone to stealing, I got to change that. I can't just let you go to the store anymore by yourself. I can't let you just go in your brothers and sisters' room by yourself anymore. Listen to my words, because this is the difference between punishment and discipline. See, discipline is taking responsibility. Punishment is being reactive. When I say I can't let you go to the store by yourself anymore, what I'm saying to you is I know that when you go to the store, you get really stressed. And I also know that when you get really stressed, you take things that don't belong to you. So next time when it's time to go to the store, we'll go together. That way I can help you feel safe. I can't let you go in your brothers and sisters' room anymore because it stresses you out. And when you get stressed out, you take things that don't belong to you, and then they get upset with you, and then you have to tell a lie, and then you get more afraid, and you feel more ashamed. You see how I'm just having a conversation? It's just a conversation. But what it's doing is it's planting a seed so that the next time your child goes to steal, immediately they have an education, an insight about why they're doing it. So I didn't have that insight about myself as a child. I didn't learn that insight until I was an adult. I didn't understand that about myself until I was an adult. See, I want you to help start educating your children now. And then you start doing that now. And they'll start learning it about themselves. And they may still steal something. You want them to, actually. You don't want them to get caught. You know, if they get caught, they get caught. You got to take responsibility for that too. But when I say you got to take responsibility for that too, I mean you got to be willing to say, look, you know what? My son gets really stressed out, and the truth is I shouldn't have let him come in the store by himself. Or at the school, you know what? He's really stressed out, and truth is we should have had an IEP here, and we should have created some containment for him so we could have addressed that. See, that's taking responsibility. That's not blaming. That's not punishing. See, punishment says you're not going in your brother's and sister's room anymore because you steal. See, that's punishment. It's shaming. Shaming says you're not going to the store anymore because you steal. So when we all go to the store, you're going to stay in the car or you're going to stay home because you can't keep your hands to yourself. See, that's shaming and blaming. That's not, there's no taking responsibility in that. See, that's all being reactive. See, I need you to move into a place of responsibility so that all of a sudden you're educating, and education brings power. That's the love. It's the conversation. And then you think about those places where your child is prone to stealing, and then you interrupt them. So that's where the power comes from. And Christy, Christy had a, can you unmute yourself, Christy? Because you wanted to talk about something. You want to talk about, share a story, a group home story? Stop sharing. Where are you at, Christy, man? Yeah. I don't see your video. She stepped away. Okay. So let's pop up the chat for just a minute. You there, Christy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you want to?
Oh, you can hear me. Awesome. Thank you. And I'll put my video back on so I have a face. There we go. Oh, so as Bryan was talking about lying and stealing, I have a story that, man, it really blew me away. And so it was while we were in Virginia operating the group home. And, you know, when we were first there, really, I wasn't that involved. I was home taking care of Marley and helping babysit some of the staff kids, the children of people who were working for us. But things got really busy. We had more kids, lots going on. We needed to be going in different directions. So I pitched in. And, you know, my background is in social work. I felt pretty competent in being able to do this. Well, so I went and picked up a small group of the boys, and we were getting ready to have an outing. We needed to stop by the house to pick up a couple of things. I think a cooler full of our snacks for the day. And one of the guys needed to come in and use the bathroom. So and this kid is, I think he was about 17 at the time, now that I think of it. Great big tall, about 6'3". And he and I knew each other, but we'd not really spent a lot of time together. So anyway, he needed to go into the bathroom. He goes into the house. I go back in to get the money that had been left for our trip. It was up in a bowl on top of the refrigerator. It was a $50 bill. And it was gone. It was there when I went to get the cooler. I came back with my hands empty to get it after he'd been in to go to the bathroom. and the $50 is gone. I immediately held my breath, and I immediately started sweating. I felt it in my hands. I felt it in my armpits. I knew that he had taken this money. I knew he'd stolen from us. He had a history of stealing. It's up there. And I'm like, okay, well, so I'm practicing this model. This is my first. This, besides my own kids, this is my first with somebody that, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to address it. I don't have any choice. If I don't have the $50, we can't do what we've talked about doing. So I stood in the house and I took a couple of deep breaths and tried to get my heartbeat from, jumping out of my chest, because I'm scared. I was scared. I was scared that we would have a big fight. I was scared it was going to be an argument. I was scared that he might get aggressive. So I took some deep breaths. He's standing out in front of the Suburban. I can picture it so clearly. He's up here and I'm down here, right? I mean, literally. I like maybe hit him at his chest. So I took some deep breaths and I went out and I said, AG, I'm really sorry. And he looked at me. He's like, sorry? Why are you sorry? I said, well, I'm really sorry. I left that $50 on top of the refrigerator. And I know that, you have a problem with stealing. And I left that $50 on top of that refrigerator, and I put you in a terrible position. And now we don't have the money, and we can't do what we planned. Now, he could have denied it. I didn't even ask, did you take it? I just knew he did. It was a done deal. There was no need to say anything. He reached in his pocket and handed me the $50. I gave him a hug. I said, man, I sure love you, and I appreciate you doing that. That took a lot of guts. We went on about our day. We went down to the boardwalk in Virginia, and we played, and we had snacks, and we rode rides, and we had a great day. And just to tell you a little more about, he's 17. He chose to stay in our group home until he was 21, because he said, I finally found some place where I feel safe and loved and understood. He could have signed himself out at 18, but he didn't. He ended up being a caregiver. I worked it out where he could get paid because our daughter Marley was born with some physical disabilities. So we qualified to have a caregiver. So this same young man came to be like a caregiver on our home. He cleaned house for me once a week, and sometimes would come and hang out and play with Marley and things like that. So just that was like a turning point for us. I think it was a turning point for him, like the first time someone just loved him in the midst of it and just took responsibility. So I feel like to me that was just such a profound story.
Awesome.
And I'm not Bryan Post, and so, I'm just a person. And in that moment, having to decide whether or not I was willing to give this a try. And it was phenomenal. The shift was absolutely incredible. So that's what's
Thank you,
Bryan.
Fantastic. All right. Now let's talk about how to end Defiance in 30 days or less. Okay, so by now you're kind of getting the theme of the pattern. So much when it comes to challenging behaviors, it's predictable. And it's driven from stress. It's driven from fear. It triggers our stress and our fear. We got to be able to start looking at these things differently. And it goes right back to the very beginning of when we started. See through a different lens. You have to be able to see through a different lens. Because if you see through that same old lens is influenced by generations and generations of views and perceptions and opinions. It doesn't do any good. That's the same old stuff that people have done forever and ever and ever, and we see where that gets us. So we got to do something different. So how to end defiance in 30 days or less. Remember, all severe behavior is predictable. Defiance is predictable. You know what's coming. A defiant child is a scared child. It is life or death. This is the first time Bruce Perry said this for the first time that I heard it, probably 20 years ago. And he said a defiant child is a scared child. That was life-changing for me. That was a paradigm shift for me. It is a life or death thing. And what you have to realize is the amygdala has 3 reactions to stress: fight, flight, or freeze. And the first reaction is almost always to freeze. Defiance is a state of freeze. That's why the child freezes. That's why they are defiant, because in that moment, they are in a state of life or death. They're in a state of shock. They're in a state of freeze. Their brains can't compute anything. Their bodies can't compute anything. And all we can do is see the defiance. And all we can do is have the experience of the defiance being respect and driven from some other place. But I want you to see that brain that shuts down. I mean, literally goes, zzz. When you say, honey, take the trash out, zzz. Honey, turn off the TV, zzz. Honey, come sit down to dinner, zzz. The brain just freezes up. You have to see that dynamic. And you have to not let that dynamic, because that's the same thing. The amygdala, when it can go into that freeze state, that's still a stress vibration. It's still a cortisol reaction. It still triggers your amygdala. You can't let that freeze state throw you off, because it will. So I want your children to practice being defiant. I want them to be defiant. In fact, you practice with them. You practice with them. Every one of these things you can practice with your children. You think it's weird. I'm weird, right? I'm cuckoo. I am cuckoo. That's why I'm giving you something that's so powerful. That's why I'm telling you that you can end these problem behaviors in less than 30 days, because I'm cuckoo and I see things differently and I feel things differently. And I want you to practice these things with your child. I want you to ask your child to be defiant. When we get done, before the afternoon is up, I want you to ask your child to be defiant. Tell them you're trying to learn some new things. Tell them you're trying to learn a new approach. Tell them you know that their defiance comes from their fear, not because they're bad or willfully disobedient, but that they get scared and they get stressed and all their old stuff comes up and they just don't feel safe in that moment to do anything. Tell them that. Equip them with an unconscious, make that unconscious process for them, equip them with a conscious knowledge of where they are and who they are and what they're dealing with. And say, okay, let's practice. And practice them have them be defiant and model it, show up in a different way. And I'm going to show you what to do. But do the same thing. You can do the same thing with lying or stealing. Model it, practice it, role play it, make it fun. Remove the threat. Remove the threat. See, there's so many things our brain wants to feel threatened about, and it doesn't have to. These things are not threats, guys. Lying, stealing, defiance, these are not threats. There's nothing to feel threatened about with these things. They're just not. There's just nothing for us to feel threatened about. Yeah, your child may be a teenager who's stealing and may get in trouble by the police and may have to go to juvenile probation or detention. All of that's unfortunate. But you know how many parents have been through that crap? We've all been through it. And you know what? At the end of the day, your child is still right back where they were. They still have the same struggles. They still have the same stress. So a defiant child is a scared child. Let that be a paradigm shift. Defiance will stress you out, turns on your amygdala, shuts down your oxytocin, confuses and distorts your thinking, suppresses your short-term memory. Learn to breathe and turn on your oxytocin. You must break the conditioning. You've got to break the conditioning that continues to show up time and time and time and time again when it comes to defiance. Your child is expecting you to do the same thing over and over and over again. They're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they feel safe until they're too stressed out. And you think about the way defiance ends up playing out. Child doesn't do it. You say, do what I told you to do. They still don't do it. You get closer to them. They still don't do it. You say, look at me, or you turn off the television, or you turn off the computer, or you take the phone, or you threaten to take the phone, and then they get mad and they go from freeze to fight, or fight. They run to their room or they run away. Right? It happens like that every single time. Well, we got to do something different. We got to break the condition. You got to be able to plant the love weed seeds in the midst of that stress. So you've got to address the stress, not the defiance, and you got to practice. So here's what you do. When you go, first of all, we're thinking preventatively in nature, right? This now, because we're being process oriented and not outcome oriented, we're taking some deep breaths. We say, hey, honey, would you turn that television off, please? Honey, it's time to turn the TV off. So first of all, as soon as I make that statement, I know that my child's been sitting there watching television for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, and now I'm asking them to turn it off. Their brain is not going to transition that easy. So the first thing they're probably going to do is just ignore that they heard me say a thing. That's the first step in defiance, is just ignore it. They're going to act like I didn't hear, like they didn't hear a single word. But guess what? They did hear. They did hear. They can't attend to it in a state of freeze. So I'm going to recognize that they can't attend to what it is that I asked them to do. And I'm not going to immediately repeat the request, right? I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to calm myself down. I'm going to turn on my oxytocin, because historically, them ignoring me has been grounds for me to get really stressed out, right? You just don't do that. You grew up with that feeling. So I'm going to wait. Take my deep breaths. I'm going to realize, see, when they don't respond to me, that tells me something's not okay. So I'm going to get up. I'm going to then go over, after I've calmed myself down, and I'm going to walk slowly. And I'm going to say, honey, you've been watching TV for a couple hours now, and I've probably let you watch it too long already, but I'm going to ask you to go ahead and turn it off. Now, here's the thing. When you say I probably let you watch it too long already, that's the first start of taking responsibility. Because if your child has watched 2 hours of television, your child's they tell you this stuff all the time in their behaviors. If they watch 2 hours of television, you know they're stressed out, and you know they're going to move into defiance. So you let them watch the 2 hours, right? So you got to take responsibility for that. You made that possible. So you know their brains are already stressed out. So now it's up to you to get flexible enough to get that TV off and to teach them how to feel safe enough to follow through with your request, but also for you to teach their brain that it's okay to do what it is that you asked them to do. So, honey, I know I probably let you watch a little too much TV. You see, the other thing that does is that plants a teaching seed. That says, I've probably already been watching too much television. My parent says they probably let me watch too much television. I better pull this together as quickly as possible. See, this is what a normal child's brain does. A normal child's brain that can regulate says, I better pull this together as quickly as possible and turn that freaking television off before they don't let me watch any more TV. See, a normal child's brain can do this. But a child with a stress-sensitive brain, with a trauma brain, can't do it. They're already too stressed. They already get too threatened. So you say, I probably already let you watch too much. Let's go ahead and turn it off. And then move away. Move away. The goal is to get the child to turn the television off. That's the goal, which means the goal is to get the child to comply. So move away. We're working this process through. Go in the other room and wait. Just stand there and wait, right? Keep breathing. Keep breathing. Television doesn't get turned off. See, all of this is planting love weed seeds because you're doing it different than how you've done it before. Come back. You sit down beside them. Put your hand on their back. Rub their back if they'll let you, what have you. Honey, now I'm really sorry. Because now I know we really did watch too much television. Now, at this point, the child's probably going to start to come a little unglued because they're stressed. They want to keep watching television, but now they know they've pushed the limit. They really want to do something different. They don't know what's going to happen. They're unsure. So when you say, I probably really have let you watch too much television, I'm sorry I did that. I'll do better next time. We're going to need to get this TV turned off, and please turn it off. Now I want you to get up and leave. One of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to turn the television off and get a little upset, potentially transition just fine, or because see what you've done all along, you've removed the threat. Every time you move away, you remove yourself as being the threat. When you come back and you're still in an oxytocin place, you're not a threat. So when you say, I probably did let you watch too much television, you're planting the seed that ultimately I'm the parent, I'm the person responsible for keeping you safe. One of two things is going to happen. They're either going to turn television off or they're going to keep watching television. If they keep watching the television, as long as there's like nothing really pressing that needs to happen, I want you to keep letting them watch it. Now listen to what your brain says. Your brain immediately moves into fear and says, you're letting them get away with it. I'm not. I'm practicing. I'm practicing. Let them keep watching. Don't stress over it, because you know what happens? They know you asked them to turn it off. They heard you. So they are now in inner turmoil. They know they've asked you. They know they need to, but they can't. It feels too good. But they know that you've asked them to, and they want to comply, but they can't. It feels too good to let it go. There's too much fear associated with whether or not they'll ever get to watch television again in their whole lives if they turn it off now. Because if they turn it off now, they may never see it ever again. There may never be any more television for them. So that's the extreme that an obsessive, stressed out brain goes to. So that's the conflict. But the beauty of it is they get to have the conflict within themselves. See, now you have to trust that that's the conflict that's happening. That's what you have to do. You have to trust that the conflict is happening at that level. And you move away. Now, if you can, like I said, if nothing's pressing, if something pressing is happening, you just got to go, you're just going to have to turn the freaking television on. You just have to do it. You just say, honey, I'm sorry. I know it's too hard for you to turn it off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I know you're going to be unhappy about it. And I apologize in advance. I let you watch it for too long. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, power off. Child does whatever they do, loses their, be prepared, go through the process with it. It's a process. You got to be ready to go through the process. Go through the process with it. Get through the process. Get on the other side of it. But what you did is you planted some love weed seeds. So the next time, the next day or later in the day when it's time to watch TV again, or the next day when it's time to watch TV, the first thing you're going to do is say, honey, you're going to remind them of yesterday. Yesterday, I just let you watch too much television. I need to really think about it because they need to ask you if they can watch television at this point because they've proven that too much television is stressful. So it's your responsibility to take charge. So when I say take charge, I mean take charge of the greater regulated environment. So they got to ask you. And so you say to them, yesterday, I let you watch too much television. You got too stressed out when it was time to turn the television off. You didn't want to turn it off. How much time do you think you need to watch television and not be able to get stressed out? Because I really want to work with you on it, but otherwise I got to take responsibility, and I'm just thinking maybe no television is the best thing. So now I put it back on them. But you see, when I'm not completely stressed out and overwhelmed, I can actually set up that teaching dynamic. You see how this is happening? When my brain is not in a place of stress and overwhelm, as a parent, as an adult, I can actually teach my children. I can actually talk to them in a way that's not threatening, even if the way I'm talking to them is perceived as a threat. As long as I keep my amygdala turned off and my oxytocin on, they can only internalize it as a love weed seed. So you give them an opportunity to make a decision, make a choice. Maybe I give them an hour instead of 2 hours this time. Maybe I give them 30 minutes. So now I'm going to work on acknowledging what their window of tolerance can handle and what it can't. This is important. See, and this is with any situation. It could be having time for dinner. They don't want to come to the dinner table. Well, I need to take responsibility. I need to figure out what is it that's going on with my child leading up to that? How can I regulate their environment before we even get to that place? And once we get to that place, how can I be flexible enough to not create more stress for them, to give their brains time to get to melt a little bit out of that freeze, to unthaw, so then they can follow through with the request. That's all you're doing with Defiance. That's all you're doing. So many times, because it happens within the moment, and our brains, our amygdalas get turned on so quickly, it's hard for us to calm it down. But if you have a defiant child, you have a child who's prone for freeze. And you've got to get to the place where you're not prone for fight. That's because that's a lot of times what happens. The child moves in the freeze, the parent moves into fight. But we got to turn that off. And instead of moving into freeze, we got to move into flexibility. And anything you ask your child to do, put their shoes on. See, sometimes with defiance and some behaviors, you might ask your child, is there something that's really scaring you about putting your shoes on? Is there something that you're worried about? I know it's really hard to turn the television off, honey, but is there something you're worried about that's causing you not to want to turn the TV off? See, now we can get into investigation. Now we can get into a conversation that actually helps both of us become more conscious. Because then I'm helping my child learn more about themselves, and I'm learning more about myself. See, this is where the magic happens. When we stop focusing just on the behavior and we start focusing on what's underneath it, then we get flexible. When we get flexible, we can get creative. When we get creative, we get less overwhelmed by the seriousness of the behaviors. And that's where it becomes a magical thing. That's how you overcome defiance in 30 days or less. So I love this Bible verse. It's let us love not in word or speech, but in truth and action. Here's the thing. We want to focus on healing because healing allows you all the mistakes you need to make. So go out there and give it a shot. Expect to mess up. Look at it. Try to see the fear. Try to see the stress because it's there. And so the thing is we just can't give up. And we've got to keep learning. We've got to keep looking to see things different. We got to keep maintaining our repetition. And so before I close, I want to tell you about something. I know that when I am presenting and I'm sharing, a lot of times it's like this. It's like a water faucet just draining down your throat, right? It's like a lot of information, and you're like, I'm trying to take all this in. I'm trying to take all this in. But the thing is I'm coming to you from a whole different paradigm than what other people are coming at you from. And so it can feel like a water hydrant, trying to just take it all in. And it's simply just not possible. You can take this webinar and you can listen to it over and over and over again. But I know that even then, you're still going to need support. You're still going to need more education. You're still going to need more knowledge, more insights, more repetition, because that's what it's going to take for you to really get this at a core cellular level. So what I've done, I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment, and I want you to do something with me. I want you to go over. We're going to do something. I put a program together just now, launching it, putting it into place, and I want to share it with you. So what I want you to do, if you get a chance, go on your computers and you type in new family, new parenting, Lovolution. I'm going to do it with you. Right here, just put it up in the search. New parenting, love, L-O-V-E-O, Lution.com. And that's going to take us here. It's going to take us to the overview of the new parenting Lovolution system that I put together. It's a membership program. And because you joined me today, I want to give you an opportunity to continue working with me, to continue being a part of our network, and continue having to access to a ton of education and information education. So this is a lifetime access program. And here's what you're going to get. You're going to get 17 on-demand, step-by-step Lovolution training webinars. It's actually a master parenting program, and there's 17 one and a half hour courses that you're going to have access to. 6-hour presentation that I give. It's a live presentation. All this is digital. 1 hour of famous interviews that I did one year, which is 12. There's one every month of famous interviews I did. Plus, there's an 18. So I'm going to take you every day. I'm going to give you a lesson. For the next 18 days, I'm going to give you a daily lesson. It's going to be a video lesson. You're going to watch me, and we're going to learn something new about this model every single day. Because you all know as well as I do, it's more than just lying, stealing, or defiance, right? It's more than that. So you go to the Levolution. Let me hang on just a moment. Let me get back to my share. So here we are. Now you can see it yourself. So it's 18 days, a daily course that I'm going to be providing for you. And then some of you heard about my trauma-informed certification. My trauma-informed certification course is a part of the new Levolution program. So you can actually take my trauma-informed certification course. You can do the quiz, and you can participate at your own pace, and then you can get certified in my trauma-informed program. Plus, we have a private Facebook group just for my new Levolution membership program, people. And every month I'm going to be coming on there. We're going to do live Q&A. We're going to get regular updates to the membership. And this is a one-time fee. There won't be any additional fees. So once you go to New Parenting Levolution, you see all this information. Here's how it works. So this is $2,700 worth of information. It's $297. This is lifetime membership, and this is a limited access. We're eventually going to roll this out. It'll be $697 when we roll it out nationwide. But today I'm going to do $297. This is $2,700 worth of ongoing information and ongoing access to me. So once you end up signing up for the program, let me show you what it looks like. Let me move this out of the way. So you click on that. Okay, let's see. So once you join, so once you click here, it's going to take you, it'll take you to the shopping cart. This is what you'll see. It's $297 one time. You know, you can look at this. And then once you've gotten that taken care of, it's going to take you to the member site. This is the member site. So first is a message for me. I want you to watch it. I want you to listen to it. Right here, you click on this link. It'll take you to our private Facebook community. Send me a message. I'll add you there. And then right here is where you start the learning. So 17 courses, 16 courses here. You can take these at your own pace. So anytime you click on a course, it's going to open up to a video. You'll watch it. It's a webinar presentation. You'll be able to watch it, and you take this at your own pace. So there's 16 of those. And then you've got these bonus. This is a live presentation of me. This is a video presentation where I go through this it's a whole day presentation that I taught to parents at a residential treatment center, okay? Then here are the interviews. You got all the interviews. You can download them. You can listen to them right here. And then here's the 18-day course that you're going to get. So you're going to get the 18-day course. Every day you're going to get one of these trainings that's going to be sent to you in your email box that you can listen to, you can learn. You got to have repetition in order to change your paradigm. It's as simple as that. And here's the trauma-informed course. You can take all of these, same process. You can do all of this from your computer at home. You can do all this from your phone. So all of this is mobile equipped. So it's a one-time payment of $297, and you'll have access to this ongoing. Again, you get the Facebook group, you get the membership to the private Facebook group, which gives you access to me every month. We'll do live Q&As. You get the 17 courses, 6 hours. You get the full year of interviews. We're going to keep adding to this, on every month. This is really my platform moving forward. That's why it won't continue to be $297. It'll be $697 for the lifetime membership, or it'll be monthly. People will have to pay for it monthly. But I want to give you an opportunity to access it because you've already proven that you are hungry, that you want something different for your family, and this is what it is. This is what you need to get you learning, get you moving forward. And I'm in memberships myself. So I just actually signed up for a guy's lifetime membership for his program, and I probably have 3 or 4 that I've signed up for. And every morning I do something, some learning, where I will click on a video, and I'll sit and I'll learn and I'll listen and I'll take notes, and that's my repetition. That's how I change my paradigm. That's how I get to the place that I'm doing something different. So again, it's New Parenting Lovevolution, newparentinglovevolution.com. It's going to take you to this site. It's New Parenting Love, LOVEolution.com. It'll take you to this site. Click on any of these buttons. It'll take you to this card. Once you finish that step here, it's going to take you to a confirmation page. And once it takes you to the confirmation page, it's going to open you up right here. You're actually going to create your username and password, and this is what's going to get you moving. So I want to invite everyone, join me at the membership site, $297. I mean, that is for lifetime access. You can't make a better investment in your home and for your family than that. So I hope you'll come join me. I want to be able to see you there, spend time with you there, and continue working with you, get you on the right track with your family, because we know it's more than just lying, stealing, or defiance. We know that there's more. We know that there's more you want to understand about your child's trauma. There's more you want to understand about stress. There's more you want to understand about their brain. You know, there's more behaviors that you deal with than just this. I go into all these behaviors. I've been doing it for long enough. You know, I want to continue to be your trusted parenting advisor and your faithful guide on this healing journey. And this is one way that I can do that for you and continue to provide you more and more education and more information and more inspiring words and wisdom and all that good stuff. And so do check that out. And so let's get back down here to our, so again, right here, we got the New Parenting Lovevolution. That show. Get down here to our closing slide. This is our contact information. I want to encourage you. To, follow us on Facebook. You know that I'm there almost every day. I'm doing a Facebook Live. So I'm there, just answering questions all the time. But if you join the membership, then you're going to get the private memberships access to the Facebook. And that's going to be where you're actually going to be able to ask me questions in an ongoing way. So this is the page again, where you can watch, and go back to that. This is where you can go. Let me redo my show for some reason. There we go. newparentinglovevolution.com. That's it. It's the newparentinglovevolution.com. Just check that out. I want to see you guys there. Thank you for joining me on the presentation. I've enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful for you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon and talking to you again soon. And enjoy the rest of your day. And God bless your families. And just keep having faith. Listen to the material over and over and over again, because you can do this. You do have the power to be able to do this. All right. We'll see everybody again soon.